Welcome back to Bad Movies Rule, the worst movie podcast in history. And today you got to strap on your rollerblades. We're going. It's Day of the Rope.
Day of the Rope.
Day of the Rope.
Happy Day of the Rope, everyone.
One of us. It almost makes it sound like that's the name of the movie. It's not. The name of the movie is Prayer of the Rollerboys.
Day of the Rope would have made as much sense as that title.
It really would have. There was no prayer in this whatsoever, and it didn't have a prayer of being anything good. That's for sure.
Let's see.
Coming out the
really
gate.
Thinks about
firing.
this movie.
All right. Well, look, welcome in today. We are excited to talk about this 1990 film called Prayer of the Rollerboys, and today we've got with us Mr. Ryan Mueller. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. Ready for a take on this one.
All right, you got both barrels loaded.
Both barrels loaded, and my
classic.
and my Kurt Russell Escape from L.A. weaponry, trench coat, everything.
Perfect.
I got all the
I'm
tools.
legitimately sad I can't buy this.
Oh, that other voice you hear is
that's a
Mr.
lie.
Charles Hewitt. Charles, how are you today,
I am
sir?
very good.
You wanted to buy this?
No, I was joking. I was
Okay,
lying.
all right.
I'm sorry. I've tried to make it a better show than it might be.
Don't have high expectations for today. That's what I do. And joining us also for the first time since Three Amigos, episode 13.
Three Amigos, yeah.
Yeah,
Three
long.
Amigos.
Yeah, that was
That's awesome.
Amigos.
Yeah, I was actually here before the Beatles were the Beatles. You know? I was like that guy that Ringo replaced, and then they became the friggin' Beatles. So,
Well, welcome back, Mr. Rob King. How are you? How are you, man?
I'm doing well. I shouldn't say that. We did a show last night.
It's a great
did.
show. I was there last night.
Yeah.
Oh, you
And so, of course, when you get done with the show, you can't get to sleep right away. And so
No.
I was up till like 1 a.m, and then this thing came up, and I was like, I have to watch that again before we tape. So I watched this at like 4:45 this morning again.
I feel like at 4 o'clock in the morning.
4:45 in the morning, nothing's good.
Nothing is good.
It's a different movie.
It is a kind of jaundiced view of this show because it's like, this is what's keeping me up.
I've been reading Stephen King, so Shawshank, and I'm on Pet Cemetery right now. I'm very depressed.
So we've been doing Shawshank. You've been reading it. We're all in a Stephen King mindset.
That's right.
Yeah, and I'm Rob King.
And
that's
so
right.
there you go.
And people
there you
always
go.
ask me,
you
you're an
related?
author. Would you like to be Stephen
And-
King? It's like,
Hey,
of
well,
course.
Of course, who wouldn't?
Well, my name is Irish. Ryan means little king in Irish.
There you
So
go.
There we go. We
There
got
you
kings
go.
all over
There we
here.
go.
Oh.
All right.
I have no king in anything.
Well, it's Three Kings.
And there's more here because so we're talking, as we always do, through the vitals. And for those of you who are new, what we do is we go through the vitals of the movie, who wrote it, who directed it, who's in it, all of that, some scores, critics' reviews, and then we give our overall impressions, just kind of what we first blush thought of the film. And then we dive in and we literally walk plot by plot through the film. So if you've never seen it, you can still stick with us. We'll talk you through it. And then if you want to go see it after, well, that's your own fault if you decide you want to subject yourself to that.
That's a great way to put it. If you want to go watch it, get it free on YouTube.
That's right.
That's true.
It is on YouTube for free. And in the meantime, let's dive straight in. I mean, the only reason I want to go straight into this is because of what you were just talking about. The person who directed this movie's name is Rick King.
Oh.
Okay. So there's even another King.
Yeah, no association.
You're not your cousin, Rick?
No, not me either.
I saw that. I was like, oh, Rick King. And so he was a kind of a king of B movies. If you look at his filmography, do you guys know who Lorenzo Lamas is?
Yeah, who doesn't know Lorenzo?
Okay, from Renegade.
Oh, sure.
And he kind of did a lot of these B action movies. And so this guy directed Terminal Justice with Lorenzo Lamas. Shotgun leather clad Lorenzo Lamas.
Isn't it Lorenzo Yamas?
Oh, yeah, I don't know if it's maybe it's Yamas.
LL?
It's 2 L's.
Is it 2
Yeah.
I
L's?
think I've always
Might
heard
be
of him as
Yamas.
Lamas.
I don't know.
Lamas, Yamas, whatever.
Prayer of the Rollerboys was written by Peter Iliff, who also wrote Point Break, which is the same exact movie.
It's the same movie, but it's better.
Yes.
It's like, to me, it's like what happened. They made this film, and then they did the, George Costanza thing of saying, every choice that I make, I'm going to make the opposite choice.
Yeah, because I looked at this and I go, okay, and he co-wrote it. So Rick King, who directed this, also co-wrote Point Break with the guy that wrote this. So I think what happened is it's 1990. They make Prayer of the Rollerboys. A very similar plot. Guy goes undercover with an old buddy of his for the cops. And I mean, if anybody's seen Point Break, knows the plot. What I'm thinking is what happened is these two guys met doing Prayer of the Rollerboys. And then afterwards they're like, what if we co-wrote a script and we just did it better with better actors? And then they made Point Break.
Yes.
1 year later, Point Break came out.
Yeah.
Are you saying Corey Haim is not a good actor?
He's not Patrick Swayze or Keanu Reeves.
That's
Well,
right.
I have to say Keanu Reeves is.
Don't you dare.
I know.
Don't
Stop.
you
You see that
dare.
hesitation? I know he's like a cult god now.
Yeah, he's like a
Back
living-
in the day, I
living
remember many
saint.
of us going, Keanu's not a very good actor. What's wrong with that guy?
I saw him look under the table for a flip flop.
That's right.
No, I will not. I will
Keanu
not
has
stand
had
for
a
any slander.
significant resurgence.
He had in the 90s he was kind of a punching bag,
Yes.
right? Of like, I know kung fu, and everybody had a good time kind of giving him a hard time.
Yeah.
Right.
But now he's like the beloved figure
Well,
of the
Well,
internet.
I think it's partly because he's actually a genuinely nice person.
That's
That
helped a
helps.
lot.
And so
and
everybody-
perhaps
yeah.
we've all gotten dumber. Riz sunken
Yeah, I
to
don't know.
Keanu's level.
I don't know.
Maybe? I don't know.
Peter Illiff,
after watching this movie from the 90s, I don't think we've all gotten dumber.
Well, that's some encouraging news for our current society.
right.
Woo!
just to give Peter Illiff, the writer for this, some credit because he does have his name on this movie, but he also wrote Point Break. He also wrote right after that Patriot Games, and then Varsity Blues, among a lot of other ones. The guy had a
He had
pretty
some
good
good
writing
ones,
career
All right,
after
well, those
this.
are decent films.
Yeah, so he definitely improved. This movie stars Corey Haim right at the height of his Tiger Beat teen idol. I mean, he had just come off of like License to Wed and Lost Boys and Lucas. It was like all in the previous years. Patricia Arquette and then Christopher Collette and Mark Pellegrino also star in this movie. There is no box office information available, which makes me think maybe it didn't get a theatrical release.
Straight to VHS.
I'm guessing probably.
Has to be straight
So
to
it's
the
ironic
Walmart
that you
bin.
can't find any of them anymore.
Movie currently sits at a 5.4 on IMDb, which is only 0.4 under the line of demarcation of Air America at 5.8.
And tied with Iron Eagle. My goal today is to mobilize the BMR army to do to this movie what we did to Air America.
Get it down a
Get it down a notch.
I like Air America. I don't know why you guys hate Air America so much.
No, he's saying he's offended that this is as equal as Iron. They have the same rating, and Iron Eagle should be higher.
Well,
I don't know.
Iron Eagle shouldn't be higher than what it is now. This one just should be lower.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're saying that Iron Eagle is properly rated at 5.4, and this one is
Relatively,
inflated.
This is inflated, definitely.
Okay. Well, wait till you hear. You think this is inflated. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's at 0% from critics. There's only 2 reviews.
Right.
Both of them were bad. But it's a 64% audience score. So 2/3 of the audience gave it the old thumbs up. People like this movie.
Checked. I've got some for our little things. I've got some IMDb.
Okay. Some reviews.
Some reviews.
I
there
love when
too.
you do that.
Yeah.
Well, when we were looking at the YouTube link that you sent us, one of the things you notice is that everybody who comments on that YouTube link loves this movie. I mean, they really do. So I had watched it, and then I read the comments after, and I was like, maybe I'm just a jerk.
Were we watching the same movie?
Yeah, but and so normally I might think I'd second guess myself too, but the more I do this, the more I realize that that's with everything we do. We did the boyfriend school and Jim Cotta, and there's people on the comments saying the same thing. Oh my gosh, my favorite movie ever. Every movie is someone's favorite movie.
Right.
isn't that what art is all about?
Yeah, right.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what this is.
Is it right? Art? Yeah, I don't know if art
Maybe.
works here, but in general, the theory of artistic expression appeals to different people on different levels and ways.
Right, it's subjective.
Subjective.
Right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
That's right.
And in this case, I think, though, we might prove that wrong. All right, look, if you'd like to get in touch with the show, we appreciate that you're here listening, but if you'd like to reach out to us, give us some feedback, tell us all the things we got wrong. We recognize we're one of the worst shows ever. We can't be bothered to do research or anything like that. You can reach out to the show at thisshowIstrash@gmail.com. Send your movie suggestions there as well, and then maybe we'll feature email on one of our mailbag segments. We're also on Patreon now, so patreon.com, For as little as $5 a month, you can have access to bonus recordings. You can vote on upcoming episodes. We just did some votes for our June episodes, and get access to behind-the-scenes content. And if you'd really like what we're doing, jump on, join us. You know, it's really turning into a cool community of awesome people. So,
and speaking of mailbag,
yeah,
this came from the mailbag.
It did.
the movie that we're talking about today.
Right. I remember when you guys were doing the mailbag, and this came up, and just the description of the movie. You're
That's
like,
all of us.
That's all.
Ryan and
I was. We were on that mailbag.
We were.
It's like, oh yeah, we're doing this.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like
And
Nazis on rollerblades. I think we're going to do it.
Yeah, and the guy that had suggested it, Brandon Cantrell, had already, we gave him a second at bat because he came in with Winners Take All originally, which I loved.
That was a great one.
And so like, all right, he's getting another crack at it. And now, you know, he's batting 500, which still isn't bad.
That's still pretty good.
No,
I mean, we are in baseball season. That's pretty good. Still,
This is
500.
actually a great film to do on this show.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
so he's
Absolutely.
batting 1,000.
In that sense, yes.
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 in terms of how we feel about the like.
Yeah.
It's the 500. Like I said, 500
it's
is still
good.
good.
Well, you know, I said it to you. It's basically comedy compost.
Yes.
You know, because you could grow all kinds of stuff out of this decaying.
Could.
Yeah.
You could.
Material.
We're going to do an autopsy on this decaying body right now. But first, before we dive into the actual, you know, go through the beats of the movie, I want to hear your overall impressions of the film. What were you thinking just like in the first 10 minutes of watching this movie? I mean, what were your first impressions and how did you end up? Brian, do you want to go?
Yeah, you know, going into this, I was like, all right, this is our guy, Brandon Cantrell. I mean, he had Winners Take All. I was like you, surprised how much I liked that one. So I'm going in, I'm like, all right. We read the review. We're like, oh yeah, we're doing this.
Yeah.
What a steaming pile, man. I'm watching this. I'm like, I'm expecting like Nancy Reagan to make an appearance in here, a cameo. It's like, just say no. It's just, I'm like, I thought the Rollerboys, oh, they're the good guys.
Yeah.
And then they're shaking people down, but it's like, I don't know them yet. And then I'm like, it's all over the board. It's horrible. I'm like, pick a lane, stay in it. And then, we'll get into the acting later.
Yeah.
Just
Not a fan.
no, not at all. I mean, just some of it just horrible. I mean, it's especially, and I love Patricia Arquette, but she was horrible.
Okay.
Just horrible.
Yeah. Charles, how'd you feel about it?
I kind of like this movie.
Yes, this is what I want. Yes, I wanted to run the gamut.
I have no reason to like this movie. I don't like rollerblading. Never did. I don't understand how anyone could have thought that would be a cool concept for any movie.
Yeah.
But there's something about this movie I liked. I found it was entertaining all the way through.
Wow.
Well, I have to actually slightly agree with both of you guys in the sense that when I started it, I thought this is just terrible, and I can't believe that anybody would be so blind as to make something as terrible as this.
Yes.
And then the more that I was going through it, the more I realized, you know, they're really committed to it.
They are earnest.
They're earnest,
in
and
what
there's
they're
something
doing.
endearing about
Yes.
seeing someone who is just going hard on failing. You know, I mean, it's just a bad concept and it's bad
Yeah.
writing, and they are just like committed.
They're going to it for it.
Right. And so it's like a little image of my own life. I feel like how many times have I been there where it's like, I know it's not working, but I'm still going to keep going.
Well,
You know,
Yeah.
so there is something about it that's sort of like almost redemptive because it's so bad,
There you go.
and yet everybody just keeps going because
They do.
they went big or go home, go big or go home.
I
They
think one
went
of their
big on that.
grandfathers played the violin on the Titanic.
Yeah,
Right?
Well,
Like-
it's exactly that sort of thing. I mean, when you look at what Corey Haim he did with his rollerblading, I mean, he was like really in these chase scenes and so on. He was, I mean, he's ducking under stuff and he's
seemed
swinging
like
around stuff.
He put the work. He put the work in. He did.
Yeah,
Which
he-
I always respect.
He did. And so it was sort of like, so you believed enough in this to spend 6 months becoming a great rollerblader.
Yeah.
You know, which was about as long as rollerblading lasted. You know, you got your rollerblades, and by the
Yes.
time you were an expert, nobody cared about it anymore.
Cared.
Yeah, and I think to me, my impression was that it's what both the worst and the best thing going for this movie is the fact that they played the entire thing as serious as a car accident, right? I mean, it's both play that in its favor and to its detriment, if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Right.
I think, too, the other thing, getting to your point, all of the actors played it that way.
Right.
Except maybe the cops.
The cops were not quite like that. And the pizza guy,
Pinky.
Yeah.
He's like, Pinky. He's got his shirt down, and he's like, I'm an Italian crazy man, and I want to throw my pizzas at people.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, this is not a comedy guy.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to me, I think the ultimate failing of the movie, because I'm kind of also with both of you. It is really bad. I did also enjoy it more than I should have, probably.
Right. Even at 4 a.m.
Right. But I think the biggest failing for it is that it went all in on rollerblades.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem with the movie.
It's not just all in on
You mean you're not
rollerblades.
intimidated by a bunch of guys in trench coats rollerblading down the
but
street in unison?
They clearly thought this was going to be the next thing, right? And so they went all in on it. And you take the rollerblades out of the movie, and it's
immediately better.
It's immediately better, and it's a decent,
But
future gang war movie.
It's not just rollerblades. I mean, that's one of the impressions that I had. I mean, there are films that are mired in their time period because, like, for example, if you look at Jaws, everybody's got the leisure suits on. Everybody's got the wide lapels. Everybody's got the weird,
the mayor,
70s hair and everything else. And yet it still transcends its time because it's such a great movie. In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker's got this big 70s haircut, but it doesn't matter because it's such a great film. You just think that's what people do in the future.
In the space future.
When you look at this movie, nobody does any of this stuff in the future. They basically chose all the worst things of 1990, the mullets and the spiked hair and the suspenders and the high-waisted pants and the rollerblades and it just goes on and they chose all of these things as like that's going to be the big thing in the future, and it's like that's not even going to be the big thing in 2 weeks.
Well, LA is still the same though. So. They got that as acting for it.
They just made all the wrong bets. That's
right.
That's what they did.
And then they went in hard on
Well,
them. I mean, they just kept betting on that stuff.
I think we get to that point. I think I have some more to say on that point later on.
No, that's fine. Okay. We're going to dive into it right now. We're going to start, and the movie itself, I almost feel like Corey Haim had this worked in contractually. He's like, we better start. I worked so hard with a 5-minute montage of me rollerblading around everywhere just to show everybody
that I really can do it.
Right. Because that's the beginning of the movie is him for an interminable amount of time.
Right.
Just rollerblading around South.
On like a private rollerblading
area.
That's
I wondered
all
what
been,
that was.
On the beach.
It's like a reservoir, empty reservoir.
Well, and that's part of the problem. I mean, all of these spaces that are supposed to look really, ghetto don't.
No.
They all look like they're designed by somebody in Hollywood to look ghetto, you know. And that's part of the reason it feels false. Like there was one scene where you see this beautiful like little inlet where people could drive their yachts.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the next thing you see is, Teabagger, Steambagger, or whatever his name was.
Speedbagger. Yeah. Teabagger is a totally different thing.
So he's living in this shanty next to this gorgeous place in, so.
Well, maybe I should give a little bit of overview of what's happening. That might help people that haven't seen it. But basically, the U.S. is collapsed. And as Gary Lee says in his propaganda video, the alien races have taken over. Universities are leaving. We're no longer a wealthy nation. People are living in homeless camps, like an economic and financial collapse. But gangs are running the street, right? Like gangs like the B-12s and the Rollerboys. Which are basically inline skating, drug dealing group of white supremacists.
Right.
And
because that's what happens in the future.
Right. Doesn't become totally clear until you
not right away.
In.
So, but that's the scene.
Basically took the Proud Boys and put them on rollerblades.
Right.
They would be more terrifying, apparently.
Apparently, rollerblades are the things that make people really, really scary.
Right.
And trench coats.
And trench coats. And so that's kind of the where we are in the world. And this is really confusing in the beginning because it's I'm like, is it post-apocalyptic? Is it like post-apocalyptic light? Because society seems to have been broken and collapsed, but there's still like
pizza
insurance and pizza delivery.
Yeah. Right.
It's like the insurance is never going to cover this. Like there's still insurance.
You haven't had, I wouldn't say it's post-apocalyptic because you haven't had the total collapse of civilization.
Right.
No, and
You
because you
have-
learn other countries are doing okay.
Right.
Are doing great.
Right.
You've had
Germany bought Poland
Right.
on the newspaper.
Yes.
And
Mexico's turning away American immigrants crossing the
I
border.
really like that part though. That was hilarious, especially in the '90s. Because if I recall, I lived there. There's a lot of.
Oh, you were in California
Yeah.
at the
There's
time.
a lot of immigrant debate issues going on around that period of time with how to handle all of that.
But yeah,
So
it
I
wasn't
thought that
like
was hilarious.
post-apocalyptic. See, that's where I was
Yeah.
getting at. Let's pick a lane. If you're going post-apocalyptic, let's go all in with
Right,
it. If we're
right.
going
Right.
after school, just say no special. Well, okay,
Right.
let's go with it. But
Right, and even the street gangs aren't like street gangs. They
No.
have like marketing teams, and they own real estate investments and power plants,
Right.
and all this stuff.
Yeah, this kid's
Well,
like
the
Elon
Rollerboys
Musk
do
of
anyway.
games.
Yeah, Gary Lee is like Elon Musk before
Yeah.
it was Elon Musk.
All right, so but that's basically the atmosphere and the setting for the movie is that these gangs are kind of running things. There are police officers, but they're overrun and overworked. And we see Corey Haim, who plays Griffin, and he's rollerblading around, and they kind of just introduce a few characters here and there. Here's Patricia Arquette. She's got a cheetah jacket on with a Donald Duck hat. And here's Milty, his little brother, and Speedbagger, which is basically this guy that lives in a shanty who allows them to live in a tent with him. It's Griffin and his little brother.
He's an African American.
Right.
He's an African American. That is important. Yeah, Speedbagger. And so they're friends with Speedbagger, but they let him, so they don't have to live in these homeless camps, which it appears lots of people have
And
to
the
live
kids
in.
Right.
grew up in those.
In the homeless
Gary
camps.
Lee and Griffin had some experience in those camps.
Right. So Gary Lee is
Gary
the
Lee did, I think.
yeah. Gary Lee is the leader of the Rollerboys, who we're introduced to through this propaganda video where he's like, your parents suck. They ruined everything. And, join the Rollerboys. Day of the Rope is coming. We have no idea what any of that means yet. And this is how they're just kind of taking the first 5 minutes to intercut all these things and show you who all these people are. Gary Lee leads the Rollerboys. Griffin and his little brother live with Speedbagger. And then there's Patricia Arquette rollerblading around in ridiculous outfits. And that's kind of all we know
Right.
at the beginning.
And it doesn't get better.
No, and at the beginning I was kind of hopeful. I'm like, okay, well this guy he's okay, might be good. And you hear
Right.
the Day of the Rope. I'm like, all right, there's chaos
something.
going. Someone's hanging. All right,
yeah.
So
it might be interesting.
So to me, then all of a sudden he's a pizza delivery guy.
That's the first thing,
Super
yeah.
like, wait, what?
So Griffin has
he
a
has a-
pizza delivery, and then the van's like got
armored.
not really, but it's got a mesh over the glass.
got like-
And
it's
he's
got
chain link
M6
fence on the windows,
He's got M16. He's got to take on his delivery,
And then
you're
he's
like,
wearing
what?
a straw hat that's made out of styrofoam.
Like he's in a
okay.
barbershop
Yeah,
quartet.
he's in a
That was-
barbershop quartet.
Not a great choice.
There
There were
was
some.
sing. Are you going?
So that
yeah.
I think immediately this is probably one of my biggest problems with the film,
Yeah.
which we've touched on, is
Yeah.
there is not a consistent world here.
Right.
No.
It's not immersive enough.
Right.
It's not defined enough.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, in one scene, even I think when they went to the military base that supposedly Gary Lee bought, you could just see a normal freeway traffic going in the background.
Right.
So you're like, that-
Yeah.
And the trees are still green there, and everything. You're like,
Yeah.
well, what? So I think that's one of the fundamental problems with this film is they don't go all the way in enough to create the immersive world
Right.
of
Right.
things
It's
that fall
everything.
apart.
Everything feels fake.
Right.
Because they said it in LA, it's part of the problem. I mean, when you look at a movie like Cyborg, which was post-apocalyptic, and they had no money, like a $200,000 budget, they did everything in the woods and on the coastline and in like places where an abandoned industrial complex where there wouldn't be anything else
Right.
that you could see. And it worked really well for them. And they had far less money, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
than this did.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'd go back to what we did a few episodes ago, Escape from L.A.
Mm-hmm.
As bad as those were and that we ripped on them, that would have been better than what they did here.
I don't know about that.
Well, you're not going to get all the
yeah.
freeway traffic and everything
That's true.
else. I mean, at least it was, you could tell it was like
Right.
post-apocalyptic type
That's true. That's true.
deal. That's what I'm getting at.
All right.
Is the artwork better? No.
No,
But
certainly
from a
not.
standpoint of what they're trying to accomplish, it was.
So essentially, we learned that Griffin delivers pizza for Pinky's Pizzazz, and he needs an AR-15 to do it, right? And he makes this delivery to a homeless camp. This is kind of a way of the movie showing us, oh, look, see, these are the homeless camps where these guards are ordering pizza in front of all these starving homeless people. And it's our first moment where we learn about what mist might be. He walks. Milty gets out of the van because he's dumb, and this homeless guy is gripping the fence. He's like, "You got any mist?" And I'm sitting here like, "What? It's like Sierra mist? What? Like what is this?
Is it hot? You need me to spray you down with a little?
What is it?
bottle?
What is mist?" And it's the made up drug of the movie that the Rollerboys peddle, and it's basically just like people wear this gas mask. And this like neon blue stuff comes up this tube, and you breathe it in.
But it also is like you eat it too, maybe because
The kids are getting it in little packets.
Yeah.
they're like it's like in a solid form.
I don't know, but it's important to the plot. This mist is kind of the whole thing revolves around.
Well, Milty was being nice.
Mist.
He gave the homeless girl pizza.
He did, the little girl there. Yeah.
And apparently they don't have any lettuce because they use kelp.
Oh yeah.
Instead of,
When Pinky's pizzazz, hold the kelp.
hold the kelp, and then you hear about kelp later on.
That was Corey Haim's first big line where I'm like, oh, this kid can act.
Well, it's it's apocalyptic. So
well, and they live on the coast. So there's kelp in the ocean.
no ground lettuce. You have to get sea lettuce.
You got to get sea lettuce.
at that point.
No dirt lettuce.
There's lots of kelp on the coast.
So, but the one other thing I want to mention before we move past this,
Hey, maybe this is a half step to Waterworld.
Maybe it is. Maybe this is on the way to Waterworld.
I like it.
Right?
I like it.
We
They're
could connect the
same
two.
Universe.
He didn't he find kind of rollerblade boots in Waterworld
did.
too, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, ski boots.
Yeah,
but
see. Well, anyway, they had Google Maps in that van.
I know that was.
I was
awesome.
actually impressed that they guessed that one.
Yes, they did.
They had a dash map. It was like an old
was like old
tube
TV,
TV.
yeah.
Tube TV. Yeah.
But still, I'm like, hey, not bad on predicting the future. Most of the time, these movies aren't even close.
and I love
But
that the
see, I
kid
think-
didn't know how to read a map. I'm like, I don't know how to read a map.
But I
anymore
thought
either.
that it was, they had 90210, which I thought was because of the show.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, hey, we want to kind of link into that whole thing because this is LA and Hollywood.
Could be. Could be.
Yeah, they had the GPS on the little TV screen in there.
Called it a dash map.
Dash
Yeah,
map.
dash map.
So they
man.
even a blind pig finds an acorn.
That's true. And so the first big plot development is he comes across a house that is on fire, and he hears somebody inside screaming for help. And we see these two B-12 gang members kind of running away. They're trying to kill whoever's in there, but they couldn't get a shot. They hightail it.
Because there's a guy in a pizza truck with a striped vest and a styrofoam hat who comes out, and they're like, "Oh my God, somebody's here!
We better run
Let's get out of
away."
here!
We got to get out of here.
We gotta get out of here!"
He's got a.
Who
These
ordered
pizza.
the song and dance here?
The pizza guys do carry assault rifles.
Yeah,
in
it's
Yeah,
fairness.
well, but he didn't have it with him when he
take it
jumped
out.
out of his van.
No, he
That's
left in the van. Yeah.
So Griffin is a smart guy and a nice guy. He wants to help this dude, so he just backs his van and just crashes through the wall.
Yep.
And frees this guy who we learn is Bullwinkle
Bullwinkle.
Yeah,
Winkle.
with the most luscious head of hair of
got some
anybody in
nice
the
hair.
film. I needed a slow-mo shot of just one of these.
him, yeah.
Like he gets out of the fire and he's like, "Thank you, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh," but we didn't get that.
Bullwinkle.
Unfortunately,
Bullwinkle has a very bad personality.
he does. He's never happy about anything.
Never.
No.
He like you save his life and he's like,
Yeah.
"Thanks, jerk."
Shoot.
Yeah.
You won now. Yeah, exactly.
I
So-
think it's when he lost his friend Rocky. He just
You're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right. So the cops roll up, and this is the first time I went, "Oh, there's still police."
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And they they detain, I should say, Griffin and his little brother. Bullwinkle has kind of scooted off. And this is the first time we meet Jaworski, the chief of police.
Jaworski.
talk about overacting. That guy's terrible.
You weren't a fan?
No, I mean he was really intense.
He was.
but he was not. He was just like every trope of
Yes.
the police
Oh,
officer
100%.
with the
Oh, yes.
smoke coming out and the. Come on, kid! You got to be serious with me. Your brother's gonna end up in a ditch. And you're like, wow, where's this
Right.
all coming from?
Oh, and he's sitting, and he says, "Your brother's going to get hooked on drugs." "That's not going to happen, man." "It's already happened!"
And he's just right in his face, and he's so mad. Can't believe it.
Oh, that's good stuff. And so Jaworski cuts him loose. He's all right, your delivery job checks out. And obviously Pinky is very angry that his pizza truck, my van, what am I going to do? That's my Italian imitation. I'm an actor.
That was straight on for Pinky, though.
That was
Pinky
about-
was terrible.
Appreciate that. So this is the first time in the movie I laughed out loud. For some inexplicable reason, Griffin and his little brother Milty are now hanging out in a parking garage. Right? They're like,
Yeah.
Yes.
"Oh man,
yeah.
I can't believe that happened." Blah blah blah. And in roll the Rollerboys.
I know. as soon as they show up, you think
unison and their coats flying.
they're like Nazis, except in ice capades.
Synchronized rollerblading.
Is this supposed to be intimidating?
I don't know, man.
Because it really is kind
They
of
like that shot.
It's kind of beautiful.
Over and
Well, you
over
got
again.
the trench coats or lab coats
Yeah.
are swaying.
and they're wearing
Yeah.
suspenders, and they got
I
whitish
know.
or tan clothes on.
But there's something graceful and beautiful
It
about
is,
them.
yes.
Right.
And not intimidating, though.
No, not at all.
No.
And even at the end, when he rolls up on him, he hits him with that little razzle dazzle
yeah,
at the
he does
end
a
and gives him
little
the little spin. And I'm like, oh, you got to hit him with the razzle dazzle.
My, my
Mullet
first
shaking.
thought was
Just-
I have this feeling that although society is falling apart, there still must be very good road cleaning crews
Yeah.
Yes.
because they can rollerblade all over the city
can.
and never stumble on
The
stones
tiniest
or
bump
rocks or
in a
bumps.
road will
Yes.
take you down
Yes.
on a rollerblade.
You know, if this
They
had
can
been
do
a
this.
bigger film, they could have done a sequel where all the Nazis had become synchronized swimmers.
Yes. Well, they.
And you would have been like, oh no, it's
I
another
think-
pool with Nazis.
I think somewhere out there, someone has a Rollerboy 2 script.
Well, if it goes to Waterworld, then that would be perfect. Right?
Yeah,
Because-
synchronized.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
You're driving. You're flying up through
That's
the
right.
ocean, and then there's these Nazis doing synchronized swimming. You're like, no,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
what a world.
But yeah, you're right. He had the, Ryan, he had the perm and the mullet at the same time. That's a bold choice.
Yeah.
That's, hey,
You go for
figure.
it.
Go home.
That looks come back. I know a certain person that has
So
one
do
of
I.
those.
Paul.
Yeah.
That's
He does.
So I'm watching this with my daughter, Grace, and she immediately goes, it's Paul.
Oh, that's right.
He's got blonde hair and curly and the mullet.
I hope he didn't get it from
In
this movie.
2022.
That's right. Everything comes back.
It comes back, guys.
You know, okay, so this is a little diversion, but
Yes.
there were two. Since you just mentioned Gary Lee, and he's the guy with the mullet and the perm.
Yeah.
And then you had also talked about Milty.
Yes.
So I got serious vibes from the two of them, like, you know, young Anakin Skywalker was like Milty. And I got
What a glowing praise that is.
And I know, and then older Anakin Skywalker was Gary Lee.
Okay.
I mean, they look the same, they act the same. It's like, you know, Lucas saw
true.
this, and
Milty-
9 years later, he's like, "That's
Milty
what
had a little.
I got to
he had some
reproduce
long hair
that
going in the back.
for my first prequel."
He did have the Jedi rat tail.
He did.
Kind
Yeah.
of in
Yeah,
the
he
back
did.
too,
Yeah, he did.
right?
Yeah, and he also had the bad acting.
Oh yes, that is also a requisite.
He definitely
Yeah.
had the bad acting down.
He did.
No doubt about
you know,
that.
we were just Jenny and I were just watching this the Adam Project.
Yeah, with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, and there's the young actor in that is just terrific.
Oh, we've had.
They're so much better now.
He's so good.
Well, you just-
and I was like, and I turned to her and I said, you know, that's what you need if you need a young actor, you need somebody that you just think is that just can deliver, not
Yes.
somebody who's like, constantly like, I am a young person and I am acting.
right.
Well, you just go, what, 5 years later to
Yeah.
Waterworld? I mean,
Yeah, she was great.
Majorino was fantastic.
Yeah,
Right.
And even in later '90s, you get Haley Joel Osment in Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
and it really has just improved and improved and improved.
Yeah.
these days you don't really. I guess you can
So
find.
you think that there was just a time when everybody was just like, you know,
Good enough.
He's young.
before
he's
Disney
gonna
changed.
be
That's when
terrible.
we talked about
but if
Winners Take All, and
Yeah.
now they were like, some of them were probably like 35, but they're playing teenagers.
they're playing teenagers, and I think what happens is enough people come out and do well, and it raises the bar for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, now this is so when like a Haley Joel Osment, for example,
Right.
comes out and does a performance like that, it raises the bar.
So we had the Sixth Sense, and then
Yeah.
we still had the Phantom Menace,
Right.
Where it's like you didn't hire him, you hired the other guy.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, so the Rollerboys, as a thank you for he makes Bullwinkle say thank you, and like I said, he's like, thanks, jerk. Like even though he saved his life, he's not happy. He's just a miserable person. They basically say whatever you want, we'll give you. Milty ends up getting a new van, even though Griffin's like, we don't want anything from you guys. He doesn't want to be beholden to them.
And I love the van.
The van,
Oh, yeah.
what
One
kind
of
of van
those-
was
I
that?
think
Oldsmobile silhouette.
Yeah, it was one of those.
We have one of those.
They used to call them the Dustbuster.
Wait, did you say
vans.
have?
The Dustbuster?
Have
It's like
one?
20 years old.
Awesome. The giant dashboard,
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
windscreen. Yeah.
Oh,
I was
man.
so excited to see that when it pulled up. I'm like,
So was Pinky. Pinky was
Pinky was
my
a-
rocking
immediate-
in the
my-
high five.
Yeah.
My immediate thought though was he's gonna have a hard time armoring that with because it's all glass.
Yeah,
It's all
it's
the
all
whole thing
glass.
is glass.
He's gonna have
Good
trouble.
luck
Who
to
knows
him.
how much chain link fence they got left to.
And so before we go on where he goes to Gary Lee's birthday party, we do have this really random scene where Casey just randomly comes up to him on a dock trolling for drugs. Right? She's like, "Come on, you got some drugs."
I did not understand Casey and his relationship.
Well, there was nothing to understand.
Was that right?
They didn't develop it at all. But at this
she
point,
came into Speed Baggers.
That was for like 1 second.
Yeah, for a second, Milty was talking.
Milty
crap,
was
and
hitting
then-
her up, which was really creepy.
Yeah,
was,
well, he's like, "Check out my brother," or whatever. Yeah,
"Did you hit me with those digits or something along that?"
I'll pass them along to my brother.
She's like, "Nah, I'm good." And the next time we see her, she's rolling up on Griffin asking for drugs.
Yeah, I didn't understand that.
In her bra.
Yeah.
And
I know that's never happened to me. People don't roll up to me in their bras and ask for anything.
We find out later she's an undercover cop, and she's trying to see if he's, one of them or whatever, right? And so he blows her off and says, "No, I don't have any drugs," and off she goes.
Doesn't he give her money though?
No, she gives her money back.
Yeah.
She puts money in his hand, he gives it back to her, and he dips. And so Gary Lee's having this birthday party, and Milty is there. And so Griffin shows up, and Milty is really his doorway into the Rollerboys because he's the one that gets sucked in before Griffin does.
bring
And so
Milty in.
he's more just trying to get Milty out before he ends up. Well, we'll get into all
But
that.
right
And
from
they
the
had a great-
beginning, we know that he's trying to keep Milty away. Milty's drawn to him.
And it was
Yes.
a great song playing during the birthday party. I'm just say that.
What song? I don't even
was,
remember.
Head Like a Hole by Nine Inch Nails.
there you go.
Yeah,
Love
that is a great song. But I have to say about the birthday party.
Yes.
So I'm the kingpin of this narcotics Nazi ring. Mm-hmm. So I would like to have a carousel, and I'd like for somebody to give me a year's
mud
pass
wrestling pit.
at a year's pass for miniature golf. And then there's like a Jello wrestling thing, and then there's like it's like this is like
Mermaids.
the
I thought
mermaids. It's like this is the lamest
I thought to myself,
possible.
merry-go-round's a little more risque in the future than they are.
I guess.
Well, he was Gary Lee Claus, though. I thought he was like, "Oh, you want? Yeah, okay, we can give you your pass to mini golf or whatever."
Yeah.
Well, sure, I'm Gary Lee Claus.
Gary
I own
Lee.
it. Whatever.
Gary Lee switches many times between being oddly likable and horrifically evil.
Yeah.
And so I get in the beginning why people are confused. At least I was. When I thought they were good guys for the first 20 minutes of this movie. And then it's not till as we go through that you realize they're white supremacists.
Right.
They're
Drug pushers.
They're murderers. They're, even worse. We'll get into that later. I don't want to
They're
spoil that one.
rollerbladers.
They're rollerbladers.
I know that's the unforgivable part.
That is, of all those things.
Yeah.
And so Griffin shows up and he's kind of navigating through this insane party of people. And then here's Milty hanging out at the mud wrestling pit with the girls in their swimsuits just screaming, yeah.
And
He's like,
some not with swimsuits.
And some not with
That's the
swimsuits.
thing. This was like the 90s.
it's the 90s. So you got to have the
So it's
obligatory
like-
scene
ladies.
of topless ladies.
So
which
that's
is
the
this
thing
one.
is that they had banked on the mullets and on the spiked hair and on the suspenders and on the
Yeah.
rollerblades. The one thing they got right was the boobs. That's right. It's like that's never going out.
And the
that one-
GPS.
And that one-
GPS.
yeah,
GPS. Okay, two.
They randomly were super accurate on the one thing.
On the two things.
So he tries to pull Milty out, and he kind of rebuffs. Sorry, so he pulls Milty out and he kind of rebuffs Gary. And this is Gary's first attempt to be like, "Come on,
Right.
why don't you come join the
not
Rollerboys?
so
Look,
bad."
we've got a carousel."
I've got
I got mini golf.
cake with my cheesy looking face on.
That was bad.
It was a bad
Spend a little
cake.
more money on a cake,
know.
Gary.
It's like you're a drug kingpin.
Maybe it was like
embarrassing.
kelp cake or
It was like a
something.
sheet cake from Walmart.
They spelled Gary with two R's. It's like, well, we gave him $10 off.
And an E.
As he's getting Milty, and now he's trying to get out. He's outside the building, and the third weird interaction with Casey happens. Casey follows him outside and again asks for drugs, and he just immediately starts Frenching her.
Yeah.
That's the French kissing was another one of the things that they just went all in. on.
Disgusting.
Every single
That was
time. It's just like,
way too sexual, and like he takes her underwear off.
well, that's
Right.
the thing is
What
he
is
reaches
going
down to take her
on?
underwear off and then hands it to her and says, "So you'll do anything for drugs?"
And then
it's like,
and then
why
dips.
You're not allowed to, you're not allowed to take somebody's underwear off and then blame
weird.
them.
Yeah. That's
for
really,
what their behavior is.
That and the scene coming up with her.
Yeah.
They're disturbing a little bit.
Well, because it gets.
If we could just jump to that scene very quickly, because she looks like she's going to do something.
In a later scene, he goes to her apartment and she's coming on to him this time.
Right, and she's like, "Oh, I just want you to feel so good."
Yeah.
And then she throws these giant boxers, giant striped boxers. I mean, it's like she's got this really little wonderful underwear, and then he's got this old man boxers with stripes on them, and she throws them in his face. It's like, there you go. Well, if I had been her and I had gotten down to the boxers, I'd have been like, "You're not even trying. I'm gonna, you take these back, mister."
Oh my! I know, especially Corey Haim at the time. He's like everything. He's got the cutting edge haircut, the outfits, the thing.
Totally
he's wearing,
chiseled.
Yeah.
Totally chiseled. He's wearing grandpa boxers.
He's got these huge boxers. Yeah, I would have thrown him in his face.
But it's weird because somebody, you just, or it's some, I don't remember what the line was. She says something like, "Can't forget about you." And he's like, "No, but nobody forgets about you." Boom, straight into a kiss. Like literally, they've had 2 brief interactions.
Right.
And
I
he's
thought
just
they must
kissing
be
her.
boyfriend and girlfriend, and they were just playing around before or something.
But no.
That scene outside the carousel, and then you're like, "What?"
And it gets weirdly hot and heavy fast. They're standing up under a dock or something, it looks like. And then off come the bottoms, and he throws them in her face and dips on her, and just almost like he's insulted that a drug addict, which I'm assuming is at this point what he thinks she is,
Right.
would come on to him. Like he doesn't want any part of that life. He doesn't want his brother to have any part of that
Is
life.
that the message they were trying to say?
I think that's
I
what
think that she thought that the drugs were in his mouth, and so she's looking with her tongue.
she was digging for something.
There's got to be something
Like,
in there.
what's in there?
Yeah.
My goodness. But he's like, "No, I got to go. I got to skate through this hooker camp nearby."
What was that all about?
So I don't know.
I don't understand
Again, it's
that.
just let's keep people's attention with topless people and then murder.
I didn't understand that. And
He
then-
went straight from that party to there.
Yes.
Why?
And then the cops, I thought they must be like the gang guys of that hooker joint.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. So he skates through, and there's all these women like, you like, you want some? Come on.
Yeah.
At the end, he gets to these 2
He's like, no, I'm Corey Haim.
1940s cops, like that, like suits and ties,
Yeah.
They're like Dick
Hats
Tracy.
even.
and the fedora, and they're like,
Right, and they're even doing the, "Hey, boy, what you doing? Here? Come on,
Yeah.
hey, we gotta pull something." It's like,
"We got one.
happening?
Should we throw the little fishy back? He's too small." Like,
Yeah.
And so he dips. This is the really nice thing about being a rollerblader is you can get away really fast, right?
I mean,
and so
theoretically, there's a lot of people around, and you don't move that quick.
well, he was able to
And
dip
all he did,
through.
these guys had their guns drawn on him.
Yeah.
And he bumps into them, and they both lose control. And he rollerblades away. It's like, you're the worst cops
Right.
ever. And then by the end, I don't want to ruin
No.
anything, those guys can knock over a whole friggin' facility on
They
their
can.
own. 2 guys.
We'll get to that. Yes.
Okay,
But you're good. At the end, as he's escaping the hooker camp, which I don't know is like the homeless camp, but for hookers, and Jaworski's there at the end, and he grabs him, right? And he's like, where you going, Ramrod?
Yeah.
And this is where he pulls him into the police station and says the whole thing we were talking about before about your brother's going to be hooked on drugs. And,
It's
already happening. I'll call Nancy Reagan right now. And
He's just way too intense for
it's way too intense. But he's basically trying to convince him to go undercover on behalf of the police. Into the Rollerboys because he's like, "I heard you and Gary Lee used to be old buddies. You're my in.
back.
This is my perfect in. I've never had somebody on the inside."
No, you're sounding much too reasonable.
But it was also
This is not how he delivered that message.
No, not at
What's
all.
a little confusing too is what was the relationship between Griffin and Gary Lee?
They were neighbors.
They were neighbors.
But he says that, but then they act like later on they're like buddy. And I think during the
they were
race,
like
they
blood brothers.
blood
He
brothers,
mentions the
and
thing
they
where
were
like, remember that time we
Yeah.
cut our hands and thank God we didn't get tetanus or whatever. He's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little more serious now.
So it was confusing. Like, did they truly know each other and care for
Yes,
each other, or
they
were they
did.
just neighbors?
No, I think they
that's
were.
how I took it.
I think they were friends, and then one of them moved away or ended up in a homeless camp, which I think was Gary.
Okay, and then I think it's right because later Griffin said my parents died too, or
Right.
or I heard your parents died. Or
So like when they were like 8 or 9 years old, I think they were buddies.
They sound like they were good friends.
And then
back and-
life took them in separate paths.
like my buddy Shane Tinney.
Yeah.
Lived in North
Oh, let's do this. I love trying to reconnect you with old friends through our podcast.
Shane was my buddy in North Carolina. We did a lot of fun stuff.
What happened to
He's
him?
not like a Nazi on
Oh no, I don't know.
Rollerblades.
He's a good guy. Well, he stole Christy Holmberg from me.
Oh, come on.
But we got over that. We got over
Christy.
that. You know,
Christy was as much at fault for that as he was.
Probably. So, anyways, that happened, and then we moved to California.
Oh man.
And so I was in 4th grade, and I had to leave Shane goodbye.
This stuff always makes me so melancholy. I always think of the end of Stand By Me where he says, we'll never have friends like we had when we were 12, right?
Yeah.
It's just Shane, if he's out there
listening,
come on back, buddy.
well, actually, he's a Facebook friend.
Oh, well, then what are we talking about this for, Charles?
Come on, man. You're
We're already
wasting
doing all this time and you already reconnected with him.
I think he might be an accountant.
Oh, my gosh.
I feel like
Thanks a lot.
I feel like the universe you're living in is not consistent. Everything seems fake.
Jeez. All right.
All right, Mark Clyburn then. I moved away from Mark Clyburn. I never found him again. I don't know what happened.
So as he walks out, I think he's considering, doing this for the cops, but he's still like, no, my brother wouldn't do it. He walks out and immediately finds Milty slinging drugs
Right.
at the restaurant.
Yeah, the cop's like, he's going to be selling drugs. And he's like, Rollerboys don't do drugs. And he's like, I got a
Morgue full of them
Yeah,
or whatever.
he's drawers full of
drawers
them.
full
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
Right. But he goes out there and he's immediately almost like like the cop paid him to do it to prove his point or something,
Milty's
right?
all in with these guys.
He's like, what are you talking about, man? Come on. He's out here selling drugs. Good stuff. He's got a pile of money.
Yeah.
And immediately the rival gang rolls up the B-12s and starts shooting up the whole rest like the burger joint, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite funny things that happens in these movies. The Bullwinkle and Bango kind of dive out of cover and they're trying to shoot from the Rollerboys, and Griffin takes off down the road and the Jeep chases after him for a good long while until they corner him in this like fenced in area where he can't get out. And now they're holding the guns on him, right? Like, oh, we're going to get him. But Bullwinkle comes and shoots the bad guys.
Yes.
Right.
Bullwinkle can run as fast as that truck. I mean, because he shows up on foot and they drove
Oh, yeah, that's true.
in a truck
Maybe
and chased him down.
Skates on, and he was sketching on the bumper of that truck.
He had those Wile E. Coyote rocket skates.
Yeah, something. Had to.
Something. This is the first of like 6 times in the movie where they did the trope. Someone is about to get shot, and then someone else shoots the person that was going to shoot them.
Yes, that did happen a lot in this movie.
I mean, it happens so many times.
Yep.
Where you almost like you can time it out, where the music comes up, the gun comes up, and there's a gunshot, but it's not the person holding the gun.
Yep.
And they're cornered.
Like, why do we keep using the same thing in movies over and over and over and over and over?
Do you think the movie would have been improved if they hadn't done that?
I mean,
it would have been, but
yes,
substantially. I mean, there were so many other fires to put out with this film. That's like one very small thing, I think.
Don't take this away from me, Rob. I get joy out of finding these little things.
All right, okay. There's a lot of big things, though.
No, there are. So, but anyway, Bullwinkle saves him, and it's time for him to join up, essentially. Okay.
He makes his decision.
Griffin's
I think
like,
he sees
yeah.
Milty's. No, was
He's
it?
like an addict now.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
He's a
Was
dealer
it?
in-
Yeah.
He saw him slinging on the streets. He almost gets shot. Was it right after? There's a scene right after that where
Yeah.
Milty's all coked out.
No, that's a little bit later.
It's a little bit later.
Yeah. But essentially, he's like, it's time to join up. Whether maybe it's just to protect his brother or for whatever reason.
Right.
But there's one of the best scenes in the movie where he shows up at Gary Lee's office.
Yep.
And first thing I want to just talk about
Again, that office.
is the decorating in his office, where he's got the television mannequins. Did you see those things?
Yeah. Yep.
And he's got the suit of armor, the Halo Knight with the
Yes.
Superman cape, and these plants everywhere. And I'm just like, how does a person arrive here when, like, you know what would look really great? Get me 6 old televisions and all the mannequin arms and legs you can find.
Well, I think
Right.
we do have to remember these are adolescent or slightly older people. Gary Lee is not a very old kid. He's probably in his early 20s, maybe.
I guess.
So, if you think about how your 18, 19, 20-year-old decorates their room, it may not be that off. From
Well,
the
but
90s.
the other thing that happens in the scene is that they show him the guns that are being bought from the Japanese
Yes.
guy. And by the way, when he says, give me the money, they give him like a bandolier of
the money belt.
Bills.
Yeah.
You know how rich you have to be to get money belts?
Well, and who wants that? You know, it's like, oh, I'll go ahead and strap this on and walk around in this post-apocalyptic gang-ridden place with my money all around my waist.
I mean, a money belt it's a baller move, Rob. I mean, you got to be rolling pretty deep to have.
Well, and you've got your lab coat to cover it up anyway.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah. And then, so they get these guns, right? And then the first thing that our main character does is he shoots up the office.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
And then as soon as he's done shooting it, then, Gary Lee's like, well, he's in now. Because anybody who destroys my property and endangers my staff.
He has money belts. He can buy more televisions.
He's big balling, coming in, shooting my office up. Yeah, he's in.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's like you just passed the interview.
Right.
These guys in there, they just look ridiculous. This is the problem. Well, they look like they cleaned out a Burlington coat factory. Okay, like a bunch of 80s businessmen were like, "Where are all the coats?" For them, that was it. They were just all gone. They bought them all up.
Right. Well, that's the problem. Is that I think that okay. So here, very quick. I thought if this whole show, so recast it in your brain.
Yeah.
If it were actually anime. It could almost work.
It could.
Because then that stylized ridiculousness and all of these terrible lines and all of that stuff, you would just think, well, it's just kind of this cool cultural thing.
You say that. It's like, wasn't Dick Tracy about this time, too, with the...
Yeah, with the movie?
Yeah. And I liked Dick Tracy.
I did, too.
I thought it was
with
terrific.
The trench coats and everything else.
Everything was
stylized.
It looked like cartoon panels.
But the thing with Dick Tracy was that was supposed to be like in the 40s. We're now in the
Well, see, that's the problem is that there's no excuse for the choices they were making,
And speaking of terrible lines, there's a line that Gary Lee gives in this scene specifically that was awful and makes me laugh. He goes, hold on, I've got it here. I don't want to get it wrong. He sits down with him and he's like, all right, you're going to be in. He does the whole thing about, remember when we were blood brothers? It's a little more serious now. And then he turns to him and he says, I have this thing about betrayers. They piss me off.
Which is so weird because most of us are like, wow, if I could get a betrayer right now, that's what I like.
I was like, wow, that's such a leap there,
They were
Gary.
looking at Iron Eagle, too, when they did that line of dialogue. Goodbye is hard
Somebody
until
wrote
it's
that.
not.
Somebody wrote that and then printed out and was like,
Well, here's the other thing before
this
that
right
scene,
here
with the Bullwinkle and the
medium is
gun.
that?
He shoots the gun, and Griffin says, "I never changed my mind about you," and he passes the rifle to Bullwinkle.
Right.
And then Gary Lee says, "Same old Griffin, huh?" And I'm going, well, what does that mean? Was Griffin impulsively
maybe when
would
he
do crazy
he
things when he was a little
shoots
kid?
when he was a
As a little kid.
They knew each other. I mean, that it's just that question of what was their relationship.
yeah, I don't know. And, we're all, to a certain extent, products of our environment and our backgrounds. And so, if they all went different ways, maybe Griffin ends up being Gary Lee.
Maybe.
And it's the other way around, right? I mean, if they're
That's the deep thing this movie's trying to tell.
predisposed to that.
That's what it is. It's the
what it
deep
is.
thing.
That's right.
Philosophical
I've been
underpinnings.
in a lot of shows, and there are some shows that the more you dig into the script, the more it makes sense.
Yes, this probably not.
And there are other shows where the more you dig into it, the more you think, stop digging into the script.
Don't pull on the threads.
Just say the
would
line
be-
and move on.
This would be very good. You stay very surface on this
That's right.
movie.
We'll try to keep.
You start thinking, it's like they actually had probably a lot of meetings about this, and someone thought that was a good idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So the initiation, he goes, so am I in now? He's like, not quite. And he's got to do this initiation, right? And the initiation is to steal a ID badge from this top secret area, right? This
It's like a governmental area or something.
prohibited area where, they're basically, I'm assuming it's government. We don't know. They never really say what it is.
Right.
But they're going to drop these 3 guys off. One of them is Griffin and 2 other guys that are supposedly wanting to be in the Rollerboys. And he's like, rules are simple. One person makes it back to the van, they get a ride home. Only one. That's it. Have fun, I think he says.
And you have to steal a
ID badge.
ID badge.
Yes.
ID badge.
And they literally are being pulled behind the van, like skiers.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. They slingshot him off.
And they slingshot him off right into the front gate, which is really just wide open.
Right. And so here's the other thing,
So how top secret is it at that point?
If these are the rules, if this is what they do to initiate somebody,
Yeah.
you would think this place would be like, oh shit, here come the rules. Okay, guys, put up the fences or something. You wouldn't just it'd be like, hey, they're doing it again. They're stealing our ID badges again. Why wouldn't you fortify against this?
Well, and the lady that gets the ID badge taken had a non-reaction.
Right, yeah.
So maybe she's like, here's another Rollerboy.
Every day. It's an everyday thing.
I need another ID badge.
Go down to HR, get another ID badge.
They're inducting somebody else. So.
And so, but they're immediately, one guy's blown away immediately by the guards.
Yeah.
They're all just shooting at them. They can't hit anything.
Right.
This is the first time we see that one of Griffin's superpowers is he's able to casually dodge bullets.
Oh, yeah.
Just by doing a little deke in the veins.
He'll hear the gun go off and then he'll dodge.
Right.
And of course he moves faster than the bullet is
That could be he just blading faster than the bullet.
Yeah.
Can travel.
Yeah.
And
is this the scene where he jumps over the truck bed?
Yes, the truck bed.
So my question was, is that actually possible? I don't know enough about rollerblading to know whether you could.
What's the height of a truck bed?
Well, back then they weren't as mammoth as they are now.
Okay.
That's a side note, people. Why are your trucks so freaking big? Why are your trucks so freaking big?
Yeah, because we can't rollerblade over them.
What kind of truck was
Yeah,
that?
that's why rollerblading
I
died.
don't know, but it was like so let's assume that the bed is a more normal and
like a pickup
appropriate
truck,
height.
right?
Yeah.
Pickup truck height.
Mine's up to my shoulder
Yeah, it's
at
too
the
big,
bed.
man.
Right.
Yeah.
But back then they weren't that tall.
So
Unless it's a two-wheel drive, then it's lower.
So now you guys apparently watch a movie in a completely different way than I do. Because when I see him jumping over the truck, I think that's just stupid. And then you're like, now the physics in that.
Is it possible? Well, I mean, I gotta ask. I don't know anything.
No,
about
because like
rollerblading.
one time we
Maybe
did.
You've got enough. I
don't know. I mean,
don't
maybe
think
like
so.
the best rollerblader in the world maybe could, do that kind of stuff.
I mean,
It's an X gamer or whatever, but like
I think it was not real.
That basketball player that jumped over the Kia in the slam dunk contest.
That's true.
Over a Kia.
But he wasn't on rollerblades. So.
those things are heavy. You got to
help
get
you or
those
not, I don't
blades
know.
up in the air. Those things are heavy, man.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
When he was in the skate park and he's going around doing all this real stuff, and then you would see him do like a double flip
Oh yeah.
up against the
Yeah.
sky.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was not him actually.
No, that was his
in
stunt.
his skate park.
That was the stunt double they should
on.
have used for the chase later in the movie.
All right. Well,
So this is
Okay.
we shouldn't get hung up.
regardless, he's casually dodging bullets in his baseball pants that he's
Jumping
inexplicably
over
wearing
trucks.
these like Yankees pinstripe
Suddenly he's in
baseball
this
pants.
weird white outfit.
And he's, avoiding assault rifle fire at every turn, gets the badge, and now it's him and this last guy making a beeline for the van.
Right.
Which I don't even know if the other guy has a badge. You never see him having one. So
I
what
wondered
was he
about
gonna
that
what was he
too.
gonna do if he made it? Regardless.
Yeah.
There's a padlocked fence. And Bullwinkle's like, oh, a padlocked fence. I have just the thing for that. An RPG. He fires an RPG to open a chain link gate.
Yeah.
Like, overkill? I don't know.
That would have gone right through that and threw anyone behind it
Blown
into
the whole
building.
plant
It
up.
would've-
Yeah.
But, they're
But
able
it was,
to get it open.
Our guy jumps over and the other dude trips over it.
Right.
But he gets up and he keeps going.
But he keeps going. But then Gary Lee is like, all right, Griffin, here, thank you for the badge. And he just shoots the other guy.
Gary takes off before they get there. And we find out that it was all actually a diversion so they could steal guns from the place.
Right.
Right.
So it must have been a military installation.
I
of
don't
some
think. I think
kind.
it's
don't know.
private.
Maybe private security.
firm.
Because they weren't uniformed.
No, I think
Because it was on the in the docks too, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
So incoming ship from
knows?
something like that.
But then we get this really weird ceremony to induct him in to the Rollerboys.
Yes.
It's like all these torches and it's night and day of the rope. There's like little
they're
like
doing
4-year-olds. And they got this. So those of you who can't see, or if you're not watching us on YouTube, there's this salute that they do to each other.
Raise their forearm.
Because they're Nazis, they have to have a salute, right?
And you actually have to have your fingers toward your body
Yes.
in fists.
in fists.
Because I was going to come in and do this salute, and then I realized I was going to do it like the Wallace and Gromit. Gromit,
Well, and James and I
It's
were talking
completely
about it.
different.
Like,
Yeah.
how do you come up with that? Okay, well, the Hail Hitler was
You
taken.
start with the one, and then maybe
That's
they
taken.
just go with both arms.
both arms. No.
But that's Superman.
Yep.
And then they're like, how about
Arms
like
out.
this?
Well,
or
it's
how about
like,
like
no,
this?
that's
No,
like-
we can't.
Touchdown, Jesus. You can't do that. How about this?
All right, there we go.
There we
Yeah.
go.
That's how we get
Day
there.
of the rope.
Yeah.
Day of the rope.
Well, and the other thing, the day of the rope, we find out. Well,
Yes, we'll
jump.
get to it because it's like this mystery through the entire movie.
This is where obviously the clear Nazism things, right? The whole concept of homeland and living space.
Well, at this point, you
want to take over. Even I was thinking that Day of the Rope was going to be like the Crystal Knock in '38, where they killed all the Jews and
right, and
they're like the Nazi SA paramilitary force, right? They're going around beating up, they're thugs, they're doing things to try to take over the government. And the cop said he's worried that they're bigger than, because Griffin's like, what are they? Just one more gang and they're rollerbladers.
Like, no, these guys are different.
These guys are different, right? So,
and there was all kinds of those undertones, and I hope the filmmakers knew enough to do that on purpose, and it wasn't just a coincidence, because I think that improves the film, but. I don't know if I can sit here and have enough faith in them to say that was necessarily what
I think they did it on purpose.
What was happening. You do?
Yeah.
All right. Maybe they did. So essentially at this point now, after this really weird ceremony where Gary Lee gives this crazy speech, Griffin is now part of the Rollerboys. And so we get this little montage where Griffin is shaking down Pinky's, the old pizza place he used to work.
Right.
And then
his sunglasses.
That's intercut with whoosh, whoosh, some more skating, which every time I laugh. I
know. It's like they don't see it with the same eyes that we did, because, they're looking at this like, this looks so great. Let's do it slow motion.
Yeah.
Because people really want to watch this.
Trench coats and mullets tailing behind everybody.
And then, what they're doing, maybe it plays into your theory here about the Nazi parallels, the actual Nazis back in the 30s. Because it's intercut with them like giving away free lunches and comic books and stuff to the kids to get the youth indoctrinated.
Right.
And even at the ceremony, there was like 4-year-old little boys on Day of the Rope with their little salutes
and I think the
stuff.
cop called them fascists and stuff. So
he did.
Well, and he said that they were racist and so on. Yeah. So I think that Charles, I agree. I think that was definitely intentional.
There.
Now, again, accoutring them in these lab coats with the rollerblades, immediately they become less
it neuters.
Scary,
it definitely neuters them a little bit. Yeah.
That'd be violent though.
It'd be like making them, if you put them into like a plushie or furry outfits.
I would be pretty
it's like,
terrified.
well, we're still Nazis, but we're.
I'd be pretty terrified if a furry guy came into my house with guns and started killing people. It'd be like extra layer of terror.
Wow, actually, I think we're onto something.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have just put him in the hammer pants. That was a big thing too. The big parachute.
They
pants.
did avoid the parachute.
They did.
That's one that they were like, no, that's too far.
That's too far.
Nobody's going to.
Those are going to get caught in the rollerblades.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably hard to rollerblade in parachute pants.
We can't have.
See, if you're wearing the parachute pants and you jump over the truck, you get hooked on the side, and then you fall into the bed, and it doesn't work.
You can't have parachute pants just. You can't. Parachute pants just don't flow behind like a trench coat and mullet.
Would be good for hiding guns.
But interestingly enough, the same writing team then had parachutes in the next film.
They did.
So maybe that was when
they lost the rollerblades.
Let's do the opposite. No parachute pants. No,
we get rid of these rollerblades. They're at the writing table, right? And they're like, hey, man, we get rid of these rollerblades, a whole world opens up to us.
Exactly. Right? There's one scene, I don't want to jump too far, but there's one scene at the end where they're running upstairs in rollerblades.
Oh, yeah, I definitely don't want to talk about that yet.
Okay.
All right. So Griffin is now, like you said, he's part of it. He's doing his thing. And at one point, Casey pulls him aside. She's, in this ridiculous cowboy outfit with a toy gun.
Yeah. They even comment on how stupid it is.
Right.
The cops that are watching her is like, what do we have? Annie Oakley here?
And this is where she reveals to him, pulls him into an alley so the other rollerboys won't see, hey, I'm a cop, and holds a badge in his face. He's like, that badge isn't real. She's like, yeah, it's real. I'm a cop, you idiot. And if you're going to be doing this, we need the mist house. This is the thing that we need. And Griffin's like, man, that's going to take me months to get to the mist house, right? You guys are asking for a lot. Literally, Gary Lee pulls up, and he's like, let me go show you the mist house.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's the next thing we're going to do.
Except that right before that, she searches his mouth again for drugs.
Yes. Right. She's a cop.
Maybe she's a mama bird feeding the baby bird. I don't know.
She's a cop. She has to see if he's got drugs in his
It's pretty
body.
clear what her undercover disguise is.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's
Yes.
a woman of the night.
Well, as Milty calls her later, he goes, "You were with the roller slut, weren't you?"
Slut. Yes, yes.
I'm like, Milty, geez Louise, kid.
Yeah.
Well, he's
and right after that, when Gary Lee pulls up, he said, "You have her yet?" You know, so if her disguise is she's an undercover, I mean, she's the the roller slut, and then you catch your dude with him, and he can't make it with someone who does this professionally.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, how much confidence do you
Yeah,
have
I
in the
guess
guy?
not a whole lot.
By the way, I love the car. I think it was an old MG.
That car.
I was going to
That
ask.
was a nice car.
I was going to
it's
ask.
an MG. I could be wrong.
Gary Lee drives a beautiful convertible.
Gary Lee's got good taste, I think. In a
He
lot of
does.
ways.
And so he takes them to their mist house, this operation, and he's telling them about, as they're driving, all their investments and their power plants and all their things that they own. And you're like, man, this is a whole thing. This is not just another street gang.
He's Elon Musk of his generation.
Yeah. And as they pull up, he's like, we're going to show you the mist house after we have a sweet rollerblade race. And like first
Good
they've got
old
to
times. I can still beat
Yeah,
you.
just like
Yeah.
the old times.
Okay, fine. That was pointless exercise.
Yeah,
it was fun. They're building some
we
camaraderie.
rented some late '80s music for this, so we're going to do it.
We got to use it. We got to slot it in somewhere.
We didn't have any more Nine Inch Nails songs to play here, so let's put in the.
But he brings him in and he says, okay, this is important to understand because the mist house is like a little trailer inside this factory.
Yep.
Okay. And it's got a high security entrance. Only Gary Lee's handprint can let people in or out. So once you're in there for your 8-hour shift,
You're stuck.
you don't get out till Gary Lee lets you out.
Right.
And it's inside. It's like the RV from Breaking Bad.
That's exactly what I thought. The
Okay.
little Breaking Bad thing going on.
Right?
there.
It's that's about how big it is.
yeah.
And they're cooking inside this,
Yes.
except it's much more like futuristic and the stainless steel and all of these things. And
Airstream.
here's how the donuts are made, right? They're like, okay, the donuts start here and then they go through this whole process.
Yeah,
But
it
they've
didn't
got
seem like it took a chemistry guy to.
no, you're like scoop of this, scoop of that.
Bango could handle that.
Bango is an idiot, but I love him. But essentially, the thing to understand is why the police haven't been able to crack it is they have this flush system.
Yes, that was creative.
Whereas anytime, because they can't get in, anytime the cops show up, you flip a couple switches and it flushes everything through this acid vat. And so by the time the cops get in, there's no trace of anything. And he's like, and then our lawyers handle the rest from there,
Yes.
which is a pretty ingenious
I thought that was pretty nice. Yeah,
pretty good.
setup.
Yeah, except that then you just catch them as they're selling it to the 7-year-old boy.
This is true.
And
Well, the
you say,
7-year-old.
well, look, there's your drug trafficking. Now we can go in and, get your mist house.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you don't have to actually get in there with actual drugs in there. You can just catch them selling drugs, which is happening everywhere.
Well, you say the wasn't me defense is not a viable.
Well, maybe in the future, maybe things have gone downhill jurisprudence-wise.
But they even say,
Well, he owns-
I like to avoid the courts. They say
got
so.
some-
Clearly, extrajudicial, justice.
He's
is
probably
not
he
something
probably
you're
got
worried
some
about.
judges in his back pocket too.
So it was a convenient little thing to come
Yeah.
up with this little
Yes.
acid bath thing, but it's really not.
Well, I think
I was-
manufacture is a little bit different than distribution.
I was really hoping that acid would play a part at the end of the movie, but
It didn't really.
It really
other
didn't.
than for Bango to play around with it.
Yeah.
That's about
Well,
it.
and Bango turned it on and nothing happened.
That's true.
Right.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's actually a non-point in the plot.
yeah,
So this
Yeah,
point we see Milty is getting strung out, right? Milty started to use the mist and he's like just blazed out of his mind all the time. And
But he's a
Griffin-
better actor
But yes,
when he's
well, he's much
on
better
drugs.
when he's on drugs.
but you gotta remember, he got paid.
Yes,
So he got himself one of the coolest looking RVs I've ever seen.
he did. But Speedbagger doesn't want them around anymore because he
he's
joined this
racist
Nazis group.
Wow.
And so Speedbagger said, "You better find somewhere else to park the RV."
Yep.
And Griffin feels bad because he wants. He can't. I don't, for some reason, he can't say I'm undercover, right?
Yeah.
And Speedbagger's like, get lost. Which
I thought that was
which I
probably a
understand.
decent thing not to tell him.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
That made sense.
But since Milty's getting all strung out, Griffin goes over to Casey's apartment to be like, I don't know what to do. We got to, I'm not sure I can keep doing this. And this is when she does the, we're about to get it on, but Psych throws his boxers in his face, right? Suck it up. Like, we got to do this. This is your job.
And the cops are betting whether they're going to make it or not.
Yeah.
Right.
I hated those guys. Can I say those two cops?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're nothing, not just their characters, their acting, there's nothing likable about
nothing
them
good.
at all.
They were.
right. Except that they could take down a whole
Yeah,
factory
they were pretty
on their own.
impressive in the
Yes,
end.
they were. But this is a scene I've been waiting to talk about after this is the gang war scene where the The Rollerboys.
The slow motion.
I know this slow-mo. I can't do this without a pun, but the Rollerboys literally roll up on the B-12.
Right. Nice.
And like imagine a gang rolling up on you and they got beef and they're just here they come in a flying V.
Single file. And
Single
then they
file.
spread out into the flying V. They're passing the gun between each other through the legs.
Well,
Emilio Estevez is out there just.
They can jump over the trash can.
Quack, 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 quack. They can't.
What it made me think of actually was West Side Story with the jets and the sharks.
Dance fighting.
It was. The thing is, that was a musical.
Dance fighting might have
And
improved this.
you had Jerome Robbins and you had Leonard Bernstein, Stephen Sondheim. You had these three geniuses. So it's like we can look at West Side Story and say, okay, it's a musical, so I'm going to suspend disbelief. This is not a musical.
No.
You don't have any geniuses in sight. So you guys are in a bad place when your bad guys come rolling up on rollerblades and you're doing it in slow motion.
And it's laughter is what you get instead of like, oh no, here they come. Because they're coming and they just blow everybody away. I mean, it's a big gunfight.
Yeah.
But it's so obvious that there are ramps that they're coming up on the other side of this wall, to then jump
they
over.
Can jump over without ramps
because the jumps don't start till they're already at the top of
don't
the
bust
wall.
my imagination.
I'm like,
I want to believe they can just jump over stuff.
If you are fighting against a roller gang, you got to take the ramps out of your design.
Right. Well, and then there's also the
you got to take those down.
If you're a rollerblader, and you shoot a machine gun, don't you start going in the opposite direction?
You would imagine, yes. Here's what I would do if I was the B-12ers, okay? I would take $20 and I get a couple bags of gravel and I would just surround my base with gravel and they're toast. What are they going to do if there's gravel? They'd roll up and be like, sir, there's gravel. What do we do?
But see,
and they just start awkwardly walking across the gravel.
I think ramps are a lot cooler, so you put ramps all around your base.
Well, maybe
you don't put gravel.
But if you're fighting against rollerbladers, that's all I would do is surround. It'd be a gravel moat around my base, and they'd be hosed.
You know how in Ninja Assassin we talk about they must have a cleanup crew?
Yeah.
Maybe the Rollerboys have a pre-crew that goes in and sweeps all the ground and makes sure there's no hindrances.
And then installs ramps.
Just ramps
it's like there's people here putting in ramps.
Yeah.
There's siege ramps. There's siege ramps. That's okay.
Rollerboys must have that. They have a pre-attack.
They cut those scenes. They cut those scenes. I'm like, your weakness, like their kryptonite would just be rocks.
Those are in the director's cut.
They blow all these people away. They didn't think of the gravel thing, but that's fine. And then Griffin is not wanting to actually shoot and kill people, so he's like letting people escape, and Bullwinkle sees him.
Yeah.
Do it. And he's like, they have a little tussle. What are you doing, man? Come on. And I thought that was going to be it, cover blown, but it's not. They're actually terrible at realizing he's not.
Yeah, Bango comes and is like, come on, guys, we got to do something else.
Right.
Go shoot somebody.
What are you guys doing?
Give him like some sort of excuse or something, too. Like,
Yeah. But it was
they got
obvious.
away before I could get them.
And then there's like that one bloody scene where the Rollerboy's legs blown off and he's sitting on the ground.
Yeah, there's just randomly one super violent moment.
Yeah.
But see, that's one of the funny things. I mean, I was reading that Leonard Maltin had said about this film. He said it's really a strange review. He said he gives it 2.5 out of 4 stars. A provocative setting and some clever bits of dark comedy are weakened by needlessly excessive violence. And it's like, wait.
It was really dark, much darker than I thought.
The one dude sitting on the ground with some blood on, that was your violence? This was 1990. I mean, we already had the hyper violence of all of the 1980s.
Predator had already come out of that.
Right? So it's not like this.
Well, he was confused. Rollerblades are usually a happy, fun pastime.
Maybe.
I think that's. He probably took his kids.
Yes.
And he's like, you guys are going to love it.
And
it's
it had prayer in the title, so we thought it was going to be maybe even a Christian film.
What's up with all the Christian
based movies?
What's with all the Christian iconography there? They had the cross on their thing.
Yeah.
It's called the Prayer of the Rollerboys. I did not appreciate that.
Cross as well, I think.
I did not appreciate
Well, unfortunately, a lot of white supremacist groups
I know
come from or borrow, which they should not, because God made everyone.
I just wish that they would stick with the rollerblades and not the crosses.
Yes, that would have been nice.
Right.
That would have been nice.
And
because then you could laugh while they were gunning you down.
And maybe not put the word prayer in the title.
That's what I'm saying.
I was trying to think afterwards, going, is this an allusion to something else about?
That's what I was
another
wondering.
movie prayer or something, or I don't know.
Well, Griffin goes back and this is like the third time he's gone back to Speedbagger to be like, come on, man, I like you. I'm not really a racist. And Speedbagger's like, get out of here, which I understand. And this time, though, the third time, Bullwinkle sees Griffin go over to Speedbagger's house, and he takes the most angry bite out of an apple that I've ever seen. Right? Yeah,
Just ultra aggressive.
just ultra aggressive. Imagine the directing on that, right? He's just like, all right, you're going to take a bite of this apple, but you're going to be angry, but you also kind of got to smile because you got him. And he really went for it. And I went back and watched that like 3 times. As an actor, I'm just like, this is great. I love it.
It's not actually great, but it's fun to watch.
Great for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that leads to a talk from Gary Lee where he's like, man, there's some people that just don't think that you're into it, and you got to be enthusiastic, right? Come on. And the way that make him prove his enthusiasm is to grab what he thinks is a random person,
Right.
with a bag on his head, and they all just ride around and just beat up this
Yeah,
dude,
beat him hard. Go.
How
And so he
even-
goes ahead and does it.
and he's really into it.
Yeah, well, he acts like he's into it.
Yes.
But you can see, I thought, I wonder if it's Speedbagger, right? I wonder if that's
That's what I was just gonna say.
Speedbagger.
Gonna, how did I know it was Speedbagger right away and he didn't?
Well, you could see that his hands were black. So
And
you
that
knew
was the
this
outfit he wore.
You knew that this was a black guy, and so you know that you're beating up a black
not
guy
only that,
with white supremacists.
The only black guy that's seemingly in LA at this time.
Right. And so and then
true.
you're
We don't
just
see
going to be
any.
like,
Right.
I'll go ahead and do it. It seems like a good thing.
Right. It'd be like if you rolled up and there was somebody wearing like a Bad Movies Rule t-shirt and a bag on their head, like just assume it's me and don't beat me up.
Probably don't beat him up.
Just be like, that's probably James
or Kurt.
or Kurt.
And then go ahead.
Oh my gosh. So they pull off and they're doing this to goad Griffin. And so
Yeah.
they make a point
sure
of
he's on board.
they make a point of pulling the hood off while Griffin's there to show that, oh, you just beat up Speedbagger.
Right,
To
and then
Griffin's
Griffin
credit,
is angry at them and telling them to get away.
yeah, to his credit, he doesn't he backs up his friend and doesn't just
And Bullwinkle is like, I told you, and then Gary Lee is like, well, I like people who support
He
their
says,
friends.
"Back
It's like,
off."
well, wait, what kind of a test was this?
Yeah.
Right.
If Griffin had defended his friend, then
Right.
Gary Lee would have said that's great.
Right.
And if Griffin had killed his friend, Gary Lee would have said that's great. I mean, he couldn't lose
No,
in
he
this
couldn't.
test, right?
He couldn't, yeah.
Well, the exact quote is, he says, Griffin says, hey, stop it. Don't touch him again. Get your hands off him. And then Gary Lee orders them all to back off. He says, I like a man who stands by his friends. And then Griffin said, why the Speedbagger? Like, why'd you beat him up? You just can't have friends like that.
Yeah, you just can't have friends like that.
So now we know he's certainly racist.
Certainly.
Right.
Certainly.
So you took dictation on this whole thing?
No, this is from my IMDb quotes.
Oh, okay.
This was not worth dictating anything.
I know. I was like,
I usually
typing
just
away.
go,
It's like,
it's
oh,
my-
that's a good one.
It's
I'm
my
putting
secret. I just
them
go
in.
to quotes on IMDb if I
there
like
we
them to see
go.
if they're there.
And then Milty does this thing that I love in these movies where they just throw in a bunch of jargon to try and paint in some of the space
Right.
about the world. And so he's like, what are we going to do now, man? That like the Speedbagger's like, what are we going to go to the outer lands? We're going to work meltdown cleanup,
right,
the
right.
bubble towns.
Yeah.
And he's like just spouting nonsense.
Spice Mines of Kessel.
I'm like, wow, they really went through the trouble of like trying
And
to
I
color
wanted
in
to
all
say,
this.
Milty, what did you think was going to happen? Like, seriously, you're working for the bad guys and you think they're
Right.
nice to you? I mean,
Right.
what is going on? Of course, he's only 13. He didn't have
Right. He's like,
parents and whatever, but-
Griffin, once in, always in, right?
Yeah.
Or once in, never out, I think is
Right.
the
And then why did you get in?
Yeah, why did you
I mean,
get
because
in?
of you.
His brother should
jerk.
have said, I told you so.
Come on.
that he deserved a
Now
smack
I'm
upside the head.
stuck undercover with this crazy sexually amorous cop.
Right, which he
Sends me
finally
weird
sleeps with.
messages to me all the time.
So, but right after this, he goes over there and finally closes the deal with Casey.
Yeah. I wonder if the cops were betting then.
I don't know, but of course, when it actually happens, they show
I
nothing.
thought that was hilarious. I'm like, oh, this is going to get rough. I'm like, oh,
Nope.
I guess not.
Cut to the next morning. Oh, well, good
I
morning,
guess
Casey.
there's a difference. I don't know. Maybe they wanted to make
Well, and
that
also,
more touching.
who hears a knock at the door that's like, and then he just sort of slowly looks up and is looking around.
Hey, you want to get that?
And then-
Considering that he's undercover in a
Yes.
gang.
I know. And then
she's
he's
obviously
like,
in the shower.
There's
Would you get
somebody at
this?
the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was she supposed to walk naked out of the shower and get the door?
A typical stupid man wants a woman to do everything.
It's like, well, there's somebody apparently trying to pound down our door, and I know there's Nazis trying to kill us.
Can I-
I
yes.
guess I'll just go.
Yeah.
And then he actually looks through this little
Yeah.
the hole, and he sees
Oh.
it. It's
He sees
Bullwinkle.
Bullwinkle.
Hey, Bullwinkle.
Well,
And then he just opens
And-
the door.
I think before then too, he's like, Milty, just go home. And I'm like, wait, don't send your little brother away alone to go back where they know you live. And then the dumbest undercover cop in the world. I'm not sure why you need badges anyways. And then to leave them out?
No, leave it right there. Well, that's how Yeah, so Griffin realizes that they're cops when the badge is literally sitting on the end table.
Bullwinkle.
What did I say?
You said Griffin.
Oh, yeah. Bullwinkle realizes they're cops because the badge is literally sitting there on the table.
He sits next to the badge for a long time and talks.
Yes.
And then finally puts his hand down on it while he's getting up.
Then he looks at it.
This
He's like, "Oh, you're
shiny silver badge sitting
I think
here.
I saw smoke coming off his hand, like the evil is burning because of the
Right,
good.
like they tried to build tension. They're like kind of a hacky way to trying to do those shots in these scenes where like look at them, they're looking at the badge and looking at him. Is he going to notice it?
Right.
But they put it in such a place where it's right under his face.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to not see it.
Yeah. A badge is a recognizable thing.
Yeah.
Where even in your peripheral, I think people would pick it up.
And her apartment looked really nice for sort of post-apocalyptic.
Well, that's again the problem with all of this stuff.
Right.
Is it's like everything looks. They've got white sand beaches in the apocalypse. They've got beautiful, apartment buildings and condos that are all lined up along the beaches.
Yeah, I thought her place
and the
looked
world
really
is
good.
falling apart.
Supposedly,
Right. And so, again, for the next time in this movie, Bullwinkle pulls the gun on the two of them and is about to shoot them, and someone else shoots him.
Right.
The two cops in the van kick in the door and blow him away.
Except that when he gets shot in the head, nothing happens to his head until he falls on the ground,
down,
and then there's blood on the ground.
Well, because he had to get somebody to come in and pour the blood on the ground.
I know there's no blood when he gets shot. He's just like, and then he falls forward. And then when he hits the ground, he's all bloody and there's blood on the ground.
Because the production assistant came in and had
Must
to
have
put
been
it
a
all
low
out.
caliber bullet. Didn't go through him either.
No.
And then she screams while he gets shot in the head.
Yes, she does.
Why, if you're a cop and somebody just kills the person who's trying to kill you, why are you screaming about it?
Right. She'd be like, good work, guys.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like, oh no, someone's been shot who's trying to
Maybe
kill me.
she's doing the whole Archer thing. My ears, now I've got tinnitus. I hate it when you shoot so close to my head.
So Griffin does the Vanilla Ice thing. He's like, I got to just go think for a while. And just goes off in his clown pants with his suspenders. You ever see a clown where it's like the hula hoop thing?
Well,
it's
no,
like up
isn't
to
that-
here.
And it's all the way
tries
up,
to-
right under his
rib
nipples.
cage.
Yes.
Jaworski shows up and tries to convince him not to leave.
Yeah, great. I don't care at this point. I'm just trying to get to the end. Sorry.
Yeah, so he goes, "No, I'm
Because
leaving.
we're already an hour and 20 minutes.
I'm leaving," and so he takes off to do his.
Yes, to go do his thinking. Gary Lee eventually shows up to question. He shows up at the trailer because Griffin just went home, and to question about Bullwinkle because the Jaworski had the cops plant the body somewhere they'd think the B-12s did it.
Right.
So he's like, yeah, any reason why Bullwinkle go out there by himself? No, man, he was always a moron. Okay, that checks out.
That checks
All
out.
right, why don't you take his shift
Yeah, why
in
don't
this
you
top
take his
secret, top secret place?
Right.
And we already know that he's not fully all in on their philosophy of life,
Right.
Because he wouldn't kill the speedbagger.
Right. He got into the kitchen pretty easily.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he goes in to work in the kitchen and he thinks he's going to be in there by himself, but Bango is in there with him. And let me just say this.
I think Bango was like a little bright spot.
Yes, well, that's what I was going to say is that in the course of one scene, he's able to make his character likable.
Right.
In one scene.
Yeah. He does this whole weird kind of psychopathic kind of charming Iceman thing. And it's
He's
really
like knocking down. You won't tell if I drink. He's knocking down beers.
Some kind of weird futuristic beer.
He's like doing this dance.
this weird little dance with his
Right?
shoulders.
With his shoulders.
Yeah.
He's handing out drugs to the kids. Like, now these guys, you want to give them a little more because they're
Because they're
cute.
cute. Yeah. Which is like really horrible. But suddenly it's like
I thought a
now
Newsy's there for a minute though. Give him more papes because he's a newsy. He's a cute little newsy guy.
That's right.
Give him
You know,
more
now
drugs because he's gonna be able to sell them.
it does kind of make you think, if
people
there
like
were
to
better
buy drugs?
quality actors. I mean, the script was bad.
Well, Mark Pellegrino is a great actor.
But he took something that was not a great place to be and he made his little section of it great.
He's had quite the career. He's got an
he was
extensive
he was in National Treasure, Capote, Quantico TV series. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he's done tons of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Chris Collett guy's done a lot of work too.
he has.
A lot of voice stuff.
And so Bango is in there with him, and so now he's like, great, I got to figure out how this is going to work because he knows the cops are coming to do their sting operation. And as you guys have said, these two van cops are able to take out a whole facility.
But you know what?
We've
find out
driven
what
through the
rope is,
facility.
Oh, we'll do that too. Yeah.
The facility is like a mile in, and
Yes.
so they've got guys everywhere, and these two
was such
dudes
a
come in,
stupid-
just
and they're
knock
doing these
everybody
like
over.
Yes.
Charlie's Angels
Yes.
poses while they're running around, right?
It was really dumb.
But yeah, you're right, Charles. We finally find out what rope is.
Rope, right? This additive that sterilizes people.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. But we've seen a really old dude taking this mist with the rope in it. We've
Yeah.
seen these little kids taking it. And we've seen this middle-aged guy that's clearly not reproducing anymore.
But this was the thing where it really got dark for me because you realize,
Final solution.
yeah, it's a eugenics program.
Oh, yeah.
It's a eugenics program.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, oh, this is the whole master race thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in a different way, right? They're like,
Right.
we're going to get rid of the undesirables.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to remain pure.
Pure, yeah.
And you're like, oh my gosh, this is totally.
And then there's, I thought it was a pretty good scene where Griffin's like, my brother's taking this.
Yeah.
And Bango's like, he's only taking it twice. He's probably all right.
yeah, man, that was dark.
It was
we
dark.
find out the day of the rope thing
That's
is
the
literally just the
final
stuff
solution.
they add in at the end that sterilizes
I
people.
think
to
he
take
even
Which
uses
is-
the word final solution.
Which, yeah, he does. And they keep it in like a Ziploc that's got a giant skull and crossbones on it. It's like, well, what's this?
Biohazard.
You know?
This isn't good. He's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the rope.
That's the rope.
Yeah. And so the B-12 cops come in. So, and Bango's like, hit the buttons. Here's the cops are here. We got to flush everything. And Griffin, to his credit, Bango's twice his size, right? Says, he picks up a lead pipe and he's like, nah, man, I'm not. And that's when he realizes Bango turns on. He's like, you effing traitor.
Yeah.
And just cracks him right. Griffin cracks Bango right
I
in
think
the
Bango
temple.
might have died there.
Maybe. Well, no, he gets shot.
Well, I know, but
In real life?
in like real life, I think
A lead pipe
If
to the
you got
temple.
hit like
if you
that,
get
you
hit,
probably
yeah.
would be.
I was very disappointed there wasn't an acid thing broken and Bango wasn't dissolved.
Yeah, I thought that was
Oh,
going to happen
yeah,
too.
that'd have been bad.
Yeah,
I was
that's
looking
what I-
forward
yeah.
to that.
Yeah, after, people jumping over trucks, which I didn't buy, that whole thing also disappointed
Yes.
me.
But as Bango's about to get up and kill Griffin, these two van cops break in
Yeah.
again for the third time, right?
Right.
About to get killed. Somebody else kills him instead.
Right.
And then the van cop's like, haha, we're also going to kill you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
we're criminals.
We're criminals.
We're criminals. We're rich. Well, we want to get rich.
And literally right before they're about to shoot him, Casey
Where did
jumps in and
Casey
shoots
jump in
them.
and
Where
shoots-
did
Was it
Casey
Casey
come
and
from?
Jaworski came in?
Yeah, Jaworski was after the
He's
fact because
after,
Casey
okay.
kills both of them.
But she
Oh,
comes
yeah.
from behind him where there's no door.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember in my
Maybe
head
there was an
how it
explosion.
worked,
Maybe
but
there's more than one explosion.
but regardless, she just comes in. And I was
And
like, okay.
he never switches off the drug.
I know.
acid.
I know. This acid is on and nothing happens.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
So
That
you
was-
really didn't need a guy in there.
Didn't need that.
Right.
Yeah.
So this whole thing was like unnecessary.
Totally.
So we find out the cops are bad.
And Casey, and then Jaworski rolls in. He's like, "Good job, Ramrod." And you think, okay, this is the end of the movie. But he comes out. Now there's a standoff because
Yes.
Gary Lee's there in a chorus line with the not far off from the truth. And actually, it's like a one step away from being an actual chorus
Yeah.
line. And he's got Milty, and here's Griffin and the cops on this side.
Right.
And there's this standoff, and he's like, I just want the drugs, dum dum. But George's like, no deal, shoot the kid, whatever. It's so funny to me when you can see the wheels moving and the chess pieces being moved because they're not hiding it very well. Like, okay, we need to get the two main characters out of this room.
Right.
How are we going to do that? What if Griffin just mildly inconveniences him and kind of half tackles him?
Right.
No one shoots him,
Right.
even though they're all got guns trained on him.
Yeah.
They're able to leave, and then everyone starts shooting
Yes.
each other.
And also, we just want the drugs, dum dum. It's like, okay, there's probably like $150 worth of drugs that are left in the machine. That's what you're going to trade for.
right, I guess.
Come on.
And so we end up with the shoot off.
Great rollerblading finale.
But that's
Oh,
not the
yes.
finale. The finale is the shoot off's not the finale. It's the chase.
Gotta have
Yes.
the finish on the chase.
If you thought this was going to end any other way,
Chase in quotes.
Well,
right?
but
the
again,
only way it could end is with a rollerblade
Rollerblade
chase.
but
chase.
these two guys, the two actors, really could rollerblade, which
were
was
rollerblading.
surprising to me.
They could rollerblade.
Yes.
They
But for a
shouldn't.
chase scene like
No.
that, they shouldn't. Right?
It was
The
ridiculous.
stunt guy that was doing the flips in the earlier scene should have been the one skating through the chase here.
Yeah.
trying to jump
Corey
over
was doing his signature. Let me just duck and dodge these bullets.
Yeah.
Gun would fire. You'd hear the sound. Let me move out of the
Why are they
way.
in a warehouse that's full of like office furniture?
Because that's the place that let them shoot there.
And why in the post-apocalyptic would you have a warehouse full of office furniture?
Well, and then also, okay, so we're getting back to
Gary
the
Lee needs-
stairs.
I'm like,
you have
yes.
to mention the
Thank
stairs.
you. Yeah, no, well, yeah. To me, the most implausible thing in the entire movie is when they chase each other up the stairs.
Wearing rollerblades.
I'm like, what kind of sorcery is this?
They're professional gangster rollerbladers. They figured out how to do.
They've learned stairs. They've learned
Yes.
escalators.
They ran upstairs, Rob.
I know. It was
You
ridiculous.
can't run upstairs and rollerblades.
No.
And why would you show them doing that? Why don't you just have them be inside a building suddenly?
Right.
At a different level rather than running up.
It's almost like that joke scene in Blades of Glory when Will Arnett is chasing Will Ferrell down the river and into the once they get into the building, the chase turns into a high-speed chase
that
to
was
like
hilarious.
them just walking on their ice skates.
Well, that would have been more plausible. I mean,
But
you
that
can
was
at
played
least
for comedy.
Yes.
walk on
Yes.
ice skates,
Exactly.
Right.
rollerblades.
Show
I mean,
that
you're
nothing can stop them.
They had to train for 6 months just to do those stairs. I'm convinced.
had to.
Yeah, well, and I feel like, when you look at Corey Haim in this film, he's thinking, this is going to save my career. This is what's going to really...
Look at what happened
When-
after this movie.
And so he
God
worked
save us.
really hard, and I think his acting was pretty good in the film.
He wasn't bad. But it was the beginning of the end is what it really was.
Right, but you have to
That's
realize...
because he took a little of his own mist.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Unfortunately.
But still, the point is, you have to kind of feel bad for the guy because he's really putting it out there, trying to
trying.
make his life
He's
come
trying.
together, and it's not working.
Gary Lee is...
Can I say the flip around the pole to hit Gary Lee? I like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Eventually,
That
he
was awesome.
does this cool move where he grabs, swings his...
I actually was like, oh.
he finally uses the rollerblades as a weapon.
Right.
And swings his feet and knocks Gary Lee down. Is able to grab the gun and has trained it on him. And it's this
Milty
this
wants him
moment.
to shoot.
Milty's like, blow him away. I'm like,
away.
bro, your kid needs therapy, first of all. Like, he's got some serious damage from this whole thing. Then there's also Gary Lee who's like, you better kill me.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
But he won't do it because he says, I'm not like you. And at the same time as Gary Lee's about to pull out a knife,
Then he whacks
he
him in
just
the head.
pistol whips him and says, I'm also not an idiot either.
Says, I'm also not stupid either. I did actually.
And the best thing, the most convenient thing about arresting a rollerboy, they're able to just literally roll him to the police car.
Right.
And literally, you shoot the cop, and he's just like walking with him, and Gary Lee's just not even. He's just gliding along, and gets in the car. Like, this is super convenient for the police.
Yeah.
But that's it. So he goes to jail, and they abscond to Oregon, I think, or
But we
something.
find out
'Cause if
why
you-
he should have killed Gary Lee, though,
Yes.
at the end.
yeah,
here.
what was that all about? Gary Lee's also
What,
a spray
what
paint
I
artist.
thought they were
Yeah.
trying to do there is set it up for a sequel.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty optimistic for them to end this on a
Right.
sequel tag.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, really, guys?
Yeah. Well, they hadn't thought of the synchronized swimming Nazis.
And
yet.
I like how he's got his own plants in
they-
there, and he's got a desk. with
He's
a
basically
lawyer
still
and-
running his business
he's
from
running
his jail
business.
cell.
Right.
which is probably likely.
And he knows they're going to the Pacific Northwest.
How does he know that?
Because, well, see, that's the thing, is if you live in California, you don't know where the hell Oregon is.
That is true.
Because it's just weirdos up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's too
know.
rainy all the time.
got
You
you.
trust in
I'm
Southern
not going up to
California.
Oregon. Come on.
Well, that was the movie. And so we're going to do what we always do here, and we're going to give it some awards. But before we do that, if there's anything in your notepad, anything at all that you want to mention, a little thing, now is the chance, because this is where we talk about the little things.
I have 3.
Oh, okay.
I have probably 3 as well.
One of them is when they're driving away, Griffin and Casey kiss way too much not to have an accident.
There's
Look at the
more of
road,
that.
look at the road.
Oh, at the end? At the end, they're not even looking at the road. Yeah.
Well, and I
The second
actually
one-
even felt bad for, because you've got Speedbagger who's there,
Yeah.
and you've got the kid who's complaining because he's going to have to
Yes.
be stuck up in Oregon with these two people making out constantly.
true.
And then poor Speedbagger has to sit there and listen to the kid complain
Yes.
and watch the people French kiss
Like these
right.
dang
in
white
Oregon.
folks.
It's like he's got the worst life
Why am I
ever.
the last black guy alive in the world?
And now I'm going to be in Oregon with these two.
My second one
Yes.
is they must have a really great laundry service
Yes.
because they wear either white or cream clothes that get very dirty. In the
Keep
fight
your whites
at the
white.
end, they were very dirty, and I'm like, how do they keep them that white? They must have a really good laundry service.
Well, they have marketing teams. Probably got a
Yeah.
sponsorship from
Maybe.
Tide.
Yeah.
You got any more?
We've already mentioned it. There's no prayer.
No.
There isn't
I
any.
don't understand.
Well, there was
that
one point where somebody says those Rollerboys don't have a prayer.
That's true.
That was
maybe-
Speedbagger,
maybe
and I thought, well, maybe
that's-
that's the source of it. But it's
maybe
like
that's-
it's such an obscure line. I didn't even hear it the first time.
Yeah.
What do you got?
All right, so 2 quotes, and this thing was actually up for some sci-fi awards or something.
Was it really?
Oh yeah, I'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
All right, so 2 of the quotes are
These are from
review
reviews?
quotes from
Okay.
reviews. At no time did someone say this is ludicrous and stop filming.
Right. Yes.
And another one that was kind of I thought was good and ripe for just picking apart. An 8 rating if you're a teen. 6 when you get to 40 years old. Not even a 6 when you're 40. 3.5 at most. And the only reason it gets 8 as a teen is the Gary Lee's birthday party. Okay.
And the hooker joint there. Yeah.
Right. That's the only reason it gets 8 as a teen.
Yeah.
All right. So apparently, and it looks like they haven't given any awards out for years now, but there was Saturn Awards, which is for like sci-fi films.
It got a Saturn Award?
It was nominated. Corey Haim for Best Actor and the movie for Best Film or something like that. But I'm like, okay, I never heard of these Saturn Awards
I
before.
have, yeah.
It was in 1992.
Yeah.
How's this thing even getting nominated in 1992? At the same time period, you had Back to the Future 3, Predator 2, Total Recall,
Yep.
even Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, Star Trek 6,
All movies I'd rather watch.
Terminator
all
2.
of those are
How
good.
does this thing even crack the top 10? Like, really?
I don't know, man. That's a
That's odd.
wonder why the Saturn Awards aren't around
Yeah,
anymore.
maybe that's
Maybe that's why.
I think there was some money passed under a table somewhere. along
Yeah.
the way.
I don't know. Did you have anything, Rob?
I just wanted to quickly say
Yes.
both of us agreed that the problem was the high concept. Somebody came
Yes.
up with a terrible original idea,
Yeah.
and then nobody questioned it. Nobody said, this seems kind of stupid.
There's supposed to be a process where it gets caught at some point.
Right. And so what I think what happened was that somebody came in and said, okay, you like Blade Runner, right?
Yes.
This is Rollerblade
Real
Runner.
Blade Runner.
And they're like, oh, perfect, Rollerblade Runner. We're doing it.
Pass me that joint again. What was that you're saying?
exactly.
Where's that coat
You're right.
on the table?
The real
Every time that something went wrong and people were like, this seems kind of stupid, it's like, it's Rollerblade Runner. It's great.
It's awesome.
the real miracle of the movie is that it survived the pitch.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
Well, that's
Right.
not really a miracle. That it doomed a lot of people because it survived the pitch.
Right.
I mean, if it's a bad pitch, it needs to not become a movie.
No,
and this
sure.
this
This is
happened
it.
to become a movie.
The only thing I'll mention for little things is there's this one little moment, if you guys want to go back, if you dare, into the movie during Gary Lee's birthday party. The first time he kind of runs into Casey, she's hanging out with Bango next to the carousel. And they have this, 30, 40-second exchange. And right behind Griffin in the background is a roller boy who's clearly peed his pants. And no one ever says anything. Or no one ever, it's literally just Mr. Pee Pants standing there behind him. And I went back and my daughter was like, did that guy pee himself? And I went back and looked, and sure enough,
He just spilled
Somehow I
some
missed
punch
that
on
one.
himself. Probably.
and it's from behind, just a wet spot from behind, all on the inner thigh up to the butt. Yeah. Mr. P Pants in the
missed that
background.
one.
Yeah, go back and take a look. You'll thank me later. All right, but it's time to give our awards as we always do. We start with the Will Patton Award for Intensity. And as a special treat today, for some of our patron members, the ones that are at the Bro Chill level or higher, actually get to submit their own awards for some of our episodes. So we've got Keith Bentel from our Patreon list today that is going to submit his own awards for the movie. So we're putting his in as well. But we'll start
For this movie?
for this movie
Oh, nice.
with the Will Patton Award for Intensity. So who you guys got? Ryan, you want to start?
Will Patton, I'm going with Bullwinkle. I think he played that pretty well.
Okay.
I think he was intense in everything
Yep.
he did, from not being grateful to biting an apple. So,
That apple.
That almost switched my vote.
Cinched it right there.
so I'm going Bullwinkle.
All right, who you got,
I
Charles?
got Bullwinkle as well. Morgan
Really?
Weiser.
Morgan Weiser. All right, good job, Morgan.
If we're going more Nazi thing. Weiser.
Weiser.
Morgan
I
Weiser.
thought J.C. Quinn, who played Lieutenant Jurowski,
Oh, that's a
he was
decent
just
choice.
so
That's a decent choice.
Everything
That's a
he did
decent
was
choice.
just
He
so
was
over the
intense.
top and
Yeah.
just inappropriate.
That's no bad choices
He
yet.
even smoked cigarettes inappropriately. That's just too much of that.
Too much. I actually went with Christopher Collette as Gary Lee. I thought Gary Lee was
a-
pretty intense.
good choice.
Yeah.
decent,
Too.
Yeah.
There was even some quiet moments where there was some quiet intensity from him, and so I thought he did a good job. But there was we were spoiled for choice for this one. Keith wrote in and said that his Will Patton award goes to Pinky.
Pinky.
John
yeah.
P. Connolly.
He was pretty intense.
He said this one was tough. As he thought about Gary Lee, but he thought his part was too big. And I just want to reiterate for people, we used to talk in early episodes about Will Patton being for small parts, but it's just now an overall intensity award, so it can go to anybody. But he thought about Bango, but he didn't want to do that because he's a big fan of Mark Pellegrino. I think that was what was swaying his vote. So ultimately, it came down to a smaller person, and he had to go with Pinky. He had 4 small scenes, and they're basically all memorable. This dude loves his van, and I'm here for it. So that was from Keith.
All right.
He did love his
I
van.
think
He did
that's a
love
good
his van.
choice.
That's
did.
a good choice. I think all of those are good. Did you say yours yet?
Yeah, no, I had Christopher Collette as Gary Lee.
Okay, that's right.
Was mine.
Okay.
But the winner will be Bullwinkle. What was his name again?
Morgan Weisser.
Morgan Weisser, because he got 2 of the votes. So Morgan Weisser wins the Will Patton Award for
I probably should
intensity.
take back that Nazi thing. Just because you have a Germanish name doesn't mean you're a Nazi. Sorry about that, all German type folks out there. Got carried away in the whole racist thing. You
gotta be careful.
We're swimming in it right now.
This guy's got a howitzer.
I do. Hauser.
Howitzer, not howitzer.
Next is our Michael Dudikoff Trash Can Full of Dirt Award, which is the award we give to
This
who gave
might
the
be-
worst performance.
I'm going to predict this could be
A sweep? You think so?
synonymous or synonymous.
I know that already that me and Keith don't agree, so I don't know if it'll
well,
be,
then it can't be.
Yeah, I almost said anonymous now. Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Who you got
Synonymous.
for a trash can?
I had to go with Patricia Arquette. She's just absolutely terrible.
And she's a good actress.
She's a good actress.
Because I also had Patricia Arquette.
Oh, I don't
just
have, so I'm
terrible.
totally wrong.
And the same year True Romance came out
Yep.
as this movie, which is like her best movie ever.
It's possible she's the one actor in this film that knew this was horrible and she just phoned it in.
She had to have been because she's got talent. I don't know. She also didn't really have anything like from the script standpoint. Like they gave her almost nothing to do or play.
And she I would have thought even at this time she was kind of, maybe not B-movie material at this, or a B-movie actor at this point, but
yeah. She was
might
bad.
be a
Almost every
C or
one
D
of her
movie,
line
but-
readings, I was like, "Oh, Patricia, come on."
yeah, it wasn't good.
Oh, who you got, Charles?
I got Devin Clark as Milty.
Oh, so that's who you thought everybody was going to pick.
Oh,
That's who I thought everyone was.
I thought we were going to have. I forgot I was going to throw in. I've got a Jake Lloyd memorial trash can full of dirt for the worst child actor in the movie. Yeah, Milty.
Nice.
No, Milty. Now, I will say this. I did like Corey Haim, and I liked the brother relationship in the movie.
Yeah.
But Milty, just when I thought maybe Milty could bring it, he never did.
Yeah. I got you.
So I agreed with both of those, but in the end, instead of choosing them, I would choose the rollerblades because I think
Rollerblades.
if everybody were just standing in a trash can full of dirt for the whole film, it would have been a better film than if they were on rollerblades.
Because we're going to have a tie here, because here's so for the trash can, he said to Tyler, was this Tyler and Watt? Who's Tyler and Watt?
Tyler and
Watt.
Were they
the
roller?
cops.
Oh, the cops. Okay. I said another name. All right. So I'm sorry. I forgot for some reason. I thought he had picked Milty, but he didn't. Okay. So we don't need you to vote because there is no tie.
Okay.
Patricia Arquette will win the Trash Can Full of Dirt award. But he said Tyler and Watt. These are the 2 van cops. He goes, these 2 were replaceable in every way. I really feel like these 2 should have been like a small form of comic relief, and they just weren't. They were dull. Not sure if it was the script or the actors, but it just didn't work. If you need it to be just one, pick either. They're basically the same boring person.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
He's
they
not
were
wrong.
terrible.
He's not wrong. They were terrible.
They were
too.
terrible. All right, and so we're going to go to our top 3 performers now. And for Keith, he said his top 3 were number 3 was Corey Haim. So, well, I have to admit that I've always been a fan of the Coreys. In my opinion, Haim has never been the stronger actor of the 2, but he was pleasantly surprised to see him carry the lead in this movie. Not just because he was a name at the time, but he thought he was believable as Griffin. Picked Milty as Devin.
Wow.
Devin Clark as number 2. I know Milty at number 2, Keith.
I read a review,
That's tough.
and the reviewer liked Milty.
He said, this kid is gold. or in this ranking silver because he's second. Child actors are a dime a dozen. Most of the time they're meh. I think Devin did good work in this movie and shared a ton of screen time with the other main characters. His ponytail alone should get him into the top 3. And then he went with Gary Lee as his number 1.
All right.
Yeah.
That's decent except for Milty.
Yeah.
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 He said he was a good villain, and he believed him. He believed that he thought he was doing right for the world.
Oh, yeah.
And that always makes a good villain when they
That is true.
fully believe it.
He was all in, and it wasn't
Yeah.
purely just for the money, although I think that was quite a bit of it.
So who were your top 3? This is the subjective one where it's not who was the best, it's who you enjoyed the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my third, I was between Speedbagger and Gary Lee. I think Speedbagger, the old sage.
He did well.
I thought he did well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just go with Speedbagger.
You know, he actually was a Bond villain.
Yeah.
He was the guy with the robotic arm.
Oh, in
Live and Let Die.
Yeah, with Roger Moore.
Nice.
Yeah.
I had Bullwinkle at 2. And then Bango at 1 just because I like Bango. I thought he was nuts. He played it perfectly. It would have been nice if he had more of a part in the movie. I think that would have made it a little better too.
Sure.
I agree.
He had more Bango.
I agree.
Nice. Charles?
No, more Bango for the bucket.
I also have Julius Harris, Speedbaggers 3.
Okay.
And these two could go either way, but I liked Gary Lee, Christopher Collette, and Corey Haim.
And Corey Haim.
I thought they played pretty well off each other. They had good chemistry. I thought Corey Haim was fine in this movie.
Yeah, I thought he did pretty well.
Yeah.
I put him at number 3, Corey Haim, and Christopher Collette as number 2, and Mark Pellegrino as number 1.
As number 1. Bango as number 1.
Yep.
Yeah, so I had Haim at number 3, and I thought he did well enough. I think there's some times where he's almost unwatchable, Corey Haim, during this period of his career when he's just mugging and smiling, and he does a little bit of that like that because he was like a big teen idol at the time, and he almost, and I think I mentioned this to you before, he's almost doing like I think of Kate McKinnon on SNL doing her Justin Bieber impression. Like that's Corey Haim, where he's just always like, doing his little looks and the little poses and the hair flips and his hair was terrible. He looked like Bert from Bert and Ernie, like the skinny head with the tuft of hair at the top.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed it. It was number 3 for me. At number 2, I had Mark Pellegrino, and then I just had Chris Collette at number 1. Gary, he was a dirtbag, but I just really liked his performance in the movie. But so we're all kind of around the same area. But would you say now, so if we can marry the objective to the subjective, right? So is it a bad movie that is just bad? Is it a bad movie that rules? Or is it just a straight up good movie across the board? What do you guys think?
Straight up bad movie, full stop.
Full stop.
Horrible.
Full stop.
It's a bad movie that's bad.
Bad movie, that's bad.
All right, so I am going to say that if you allow for the fact that this is a rollerblading movie and the villains are rollerblading, you can accept that whole pre-concept.
Yeah.
I think this is a bad movie that rules.
Okay.
I enjoyed this movie. I was surprised I enjoyed this movie.
I love when movies do that to
The
me.
one caveat was I couldn't watch this in my normal spot, so I was laying in my adjustable bed with massage feature watching this. So perhaps
That's why you enjoyed it.
perhaps I enjoyed this movie more because it was a very comfortable situation. And I had my Toblerones and my iced coffee. So maybe
There's other things you enjoy.
yes. No, I actually did. I was surprised I liked this movie. So I'd say bad movie that rules.
All right, Rob.
Charles, I have to agree with you. I started hating the movie and thinking this is ridiculous and stupid. And then there was something that kind of grew on me. I mean, it's a bad movie.
It's a bad movie.
It's a bad movie, but I think it's the earnestness that you had mentioned.
I think you're right.
I think it's the people who are in it. Were they in the Titanic? Yes, they were. Were they trying not to go down with the ship? Yes, they were.
Most of them.
Did they go down with it? Yes, they did. But you feel for them, you know. So
yes, Patricia Arquette was not trying to play the band.
She was not trying to.
She was mad she couldn't get out of her contract.
Yes, that's right.
So I don't think I liked it as much as you two, but I don't think I hated it as much as you did.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna on the bottom side of that scale say that it's a bad movie that rules barely.
If you had Toblerones and a massage bed,
Just because I really enjoyed the bad guys, like I really enjoyed Gary Lee and Bango and those guys. So if the villains are good, I usually can get into a movie, and so I don't want to say it's just bad and bad, but it's close. It's real close.
It's a poorly made movie.
It's a
script,
bad-
everything about it, but it's the actors.
I think it's shot competently enough. It's made competently enough. Like from a filmmaking standpoint, but the script is
bad, and the concept is terrible. Yes. And then all of those choices. You know, they just made bad choices except for the boobs.
But if you accept all of that and just go for the ride, I had a good time.
Yeah, and you know what would have made this movie way better? Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Would have made this movie.
I'll tell you what.
So if Arnold had been one of the girls in the Jello wrestling,
he just got her over his head.
Or if he had been on the carousel, if he had been,
if he had been a horse of the carousel,
if he had been the guy that
on him,
if he had been the guy that wet his pants,
or even like one of the cops, or maybe you don't have two van cops, you just have one van cop.
Because then you could see Arnold coming in and totally destroying a whole factory on his own, to get in there.
He could have played Milty. Okay,
that would have been better.
He would have been a better actor.
When I wrote this down, I always asked myself this question: does Arnold make this movie better? And I really put down. Yes, in every respect. Meaning, I literally anybody pull out of this movie, and I enjoy it better.
If Arnold were Patricia Arquette, though, if he were Frenching
that wouldn't work.
Griffin,
that's ahead of its time in 1990.
That would not have.
What do you say?
Not even Arnold, man. Hey Arnold from Hey Arnold makes us better. Tom Arnold makes us better. Arnold Palmer makes us better.
Arnold hot dogs.
Arnold that owns a delicatessen down the street makes us better.
That's great. You're right. Well, look, before we go, I've got to give a quick shout out to another legend. I'm telling you guys, the people that have joined our Patreon are some of the most incredible people, okay? And so there's guys like Michael Cowart. I want to talk about Mike. You guys ever heard of Mike before?
Mike.
No.
This guy once hollowed out the inside of a tree just so he could ride it down Niagara Falls.
Nice.
Whoa.
Okay? He did it. And was he scared? No. It rocked him to sleep, okay? Yeah. He floated down the river asleep.
On a hollow tree.
And eventually landed in a forest where he built an entire society alongside woodland creatures that he befriended. This is the kind of people.
See, I thought you were talking about somebody from the Patreon.
Yes, this is him.
This is him.
I'm telling you, what a legend. If you join, these are the kind of people you get to be in an online community with. These legends.
Yes. Wow.
Okay? This is what I'm saying. Join us. If you had a good time, okay? If you had a good time, consider partnering with us on Patreon. Jump in. The people on there are awesome, and you guys didn't hear about the last one yet because the last one hasn't come out yet. Wait till you hear about the guys from last one.
That guy, legend too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Legendary.
All right, so next week, guys, we're going to be talking about a comedy from 1995 starring Damon Wayans, Major Payne.
Oh, yeah, nice.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I thought was good, and then I looked at the numbers. It's at a 6.2, which is borderline.
Right.
Borderline.
But it's 30% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. Wow. 30%.
Well, it's
and it also is at 64% audience score, which is the same
as
that Rollerboys has. So it's as beloved as that. So join us next week where Kurt's going to be back, and we're going to talk about Major Payne. In the meantime, on behalf, what's that?
All right, now he talks.
Oh, it's like what? Was that a duck quacking?
I should really not try to do impressions.
On behalf of Ryan Mueller and Charles Hewitt and Rob King, I'm James Hauser. Thank you for listening.